Chapter 1452. Could he be in danger? Wanli Gu Yoli asked nervously. After all, the other party was one of the Godslayers, and there was no doubt about his strength. Danger? Your worry is unnecessary. Dustless curled his lips. Although Salvatore Toni was a Godslayer, there were different levels of gods. For a god like Athena, who was a trinity, it was not easy to kill her. I also don't think Athena will lose to the Godslayer. Even if she can't beat him, she should be able to deal with him. After all, not everyone is like him. Erica said with a serious expression as she pointed at Dustless with a slender finger. What does this have to do with me? Dustless couldn't help but feel speechless. He felt like he was being attacked even when he was lying down. However, he was quite happy. Although Athena was a god of disobedience, now it was obvious that she had integrated into the group. While they were talking, Dustless and the others had returned to Shizuka Kusunagi's house. Sure enough, as Dustless guessed, the lights in the house were on, and he could smell the aroma of cooking. Shizuka Kusunagi was probably preparing dinner. You guys are really dawdling. It's just a Godslayer. Why did you take so long? As soon as Dustless and the others entered the house, a dissatisfied grumble was heard. Looking at the source of the voice, the person who spoke was the angry Athena. The table was filled with a dazzling array of delicious food. Athena's fingers were wide open, but she didn't eat for a long time. Shizuka Kusunagi probably insisted on waiting for Dustless to eat together. By the way, where is the last person of Salvatore Toni? Dustless asked with a smile. Although he was sure that Athena was not killed, Dustless could not help but feel relieved when he saw Athena. He was quite worried about this proud woman. Him. Athena frowned slightly and replied bluntly, that kid's strength is average, but he is very good at running away. He escaped. Dustless frowned. He felt that Athena's explanation was a little far-fetched. Forget it, let him be. He's just a harmless pawn that Marquis Warban used. It's fine as long as the culprit is dead. Dustless was too lazy to ask more. He just ate a mouthful of the Kusunagi dish. Not bad. Giving Shizuka Kusunagi a thumbs up, Dustless sighed inwardly that her culinary skills had improved greatly. Speaking of the future, it's going to be a holiday soon. Do we need to go to Italy? If I stay in Japan all the time, my body will rust. He moved his body slightly, and a crackling sound could be heard. I agree, Erica said with glowing eyes. Me too. Shizuka Kusunagi, Yoli Wanli, and Liliana looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Going to Italy seemed like a good idea. Anyway, the holidays were still long. I'm going too. Athena suddenly spoke, a strange look flashing across her face. Is it because of the stone pillar of Hera? It shouldn't be. Looking at Athena with interest, Dustless touched his chin and smiled without saying a word. You have a problem with that? Sensing Dustless's teasing gaze, Athena's face suddenly changed. How would I dare? You're the Trinity God, I'm scared of death. Dustless shrugged and said in a strange and fearful tone. Humph. She glared fiercely at Dustless. Of course, Athena could hear the teasing in Dustless's voice. But then again, that Mortis is really sad. Thinking of Mortis's past, which was Athena's current past, Dustless's cold heart had a rare touch of sympathy. It was indeed tragic to be devoured by her own husband. I'm going to rest first. After quickly finishing his meal, Dustless planned to go straight to bed after taking a bath. The battle with Marquis Warban made him sweat a lot. Dustless could even smell a faint odor coming from his body. The water is ready, and your pajamas are in the bathroom. Kusunagi Shizuka smiled very considerately. Every time, she would prepare the bath water for Dustless in advance. Thank you, Shizuka. I can handle this kind of small matter. Dustless thanked her sincerely. Kusanagi Shizuka was very kind. Although she would occasionally throw a tantrum, it was also her most adorable and lively side. Phew, lying comfortably in the water, Dustless closed his eyes. Just as he was about to take a nap, he suddenly heard an unusual movement. His closed eyes suddenly opened. "Erica!" Dustless almost screamed. His face was full of shock. "Shut up!" Erica hurriedly rushed over and covered Dustless's mouth. She stared at him and said, "Don't talk. You don't want me to be caught, do you?" "It's none of my business." Dustless was speechless. "What does it have to do with me if you're caught? Don't look at me with such an irresponsible gaze." As if sensing Dustless's complaint, Erica blew a hot breath in Dustless's ear and chuckled. "King, don't you want something to happen between you and your knight that can lead to a breakthrough? Could it be that you want to?" Hearing this, a strange glint flashed in Dustless's eyes. He was not a rookie, and he naturally knew what Erica meant by this. It also explained why Erica took the initiative to come to him. "No wonder you're so nervous. You want to steal it?" Dustless teased. "Steal it? Do you know how to speak properly? You're mine." Erica's pretty face was tense as she said to Dustless in a very serious tone. Chapter 1453. Hearing Erica's explicit monologue, Dustless naturally had a reaction. He was not a monk. Who could resist a beautiful woman who delivered herself to him? Moreover, Erica was originally Wuchen's fiancée. The only thing that he didn't expect was that Erica would take the initiative to come to his door and use such insinuating words. "I say," Dustless stared at Erica speechlessly. She had even changed her clothes. Her transparent pajamas were only a layer apart. With his excellent vision, Dustless could even see the faint blush that he should not have seen. "I'm taking a shower now." Looking at Erica, Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry. He continued, "Also, what are you up to? I feel that you're acting strange today." Upon hearing that, Erica said indignantly, "Of course I have to act fast. Otherwise, they will cut the queue and get ahead of me. Look at Liliana and the others, especially you and Athena, who are always flirting with each other. I have to defend my position." "You're overthinking it," Dustless replied. At the same time, he grabbed Erica with his restless little hands. Her face immediately blushed like a poppy flower that was about to bloom. One could not help but be captivated by her. Realizing that something was wrong, Erica suddenly slapped away Dustless's little hands. Her stern eyes were as sharp as knives. "Erica, is there something wrong?" Dustless asked in disappointment. He was very upset that someone had interrupted his good time. In particular, Erica's eyes, which seemed to be able to see through everything, made Dustless's heart uneasy. He felt that she could see through his biggest secret. "Why are you so familiar with a woman's body?" After a while, Erica asked a question that made Dustless want to vomit blood. "Of course. I have a harem of 3,000 beauties." Dustless complained in his heart, "This little girl thinks that I'm still a newbie. She doesn't think that I'm a virgin, does she? Idiot, I'm a healthcare teacher. It's normal for me to be familiar with a woman's body." Dustless said shamelessly, "And don't worry about such details. I was born with an understanding of women's bodies." With that, Dustless pushed Erica down. Hey. Didn't you guys hear that weird sound coming from the bathroom?" Wanli Gu Yoli asked blankly. Everything was fine just now, but after a few minutes, an inexplicable and abnormal sound came out. It didn't seem to be Dustless's. Liliana and Shizuka Kusanagi nodded. "Don't mind such trivial matters." Athena took a sip of tea calmly. That being said, she glanced at the bathroom, only to discover that Erica's face was red after she disappeared. She had already guessed what had happened. Shall we go and take a look? Realizing that Erica had disappeared, Liliana also realized that something was wrong. I'll go take a look for you. You're still young, and some things are not suitable for you, Athena said with the tone of a big sister. The three girls looked at each other and then nodded in unison. Fuck, Athena, that scheming bitch, is here to trick me again. Dustless's mouth twitched. Although he was fully focused on Erica, he still used his observation hockey to perceive the movements of several people in the living room. When he heard that Athena was coming to inquire about information, Dustless realized that something was wrong. She had a criminal record and framed Dustless last time. Erica, you hide from me first. You don't want to be caught by Athena. Looking at the intoxicated Erica, Dustless asked in a deep voice. Women have this kind of expression after being nourished. You really like to meddle in other people's business. Erica frowned deeply when she heard this. If the matter between her and Dustless was exposed, it was almost certain that Liliana and others would come to get a share of it. Dustless is only so big. What would be left after a few women share it? Erica expressed her unwillingness. But this place is only so big. Where can I hide? Erica smiled bitterly. Where can you hide in a bathroom of more than 10 square meters? And the other party is a god. Isn't it asking for humiliation if you want to play a game of hide-and-seek with her? That's right. Looking around, Dustless found that there was indeed nowhere to hide. I will suck you into the divine power, space first and let you out when Athena leaves. Dustless smiled. Aware that Athena was gradually approaching, regardless of whether Erica agreed or not, he directly activated his dojutsu. Divine power. There was a ripple in the void, and the next second, Erica disappeared. Creak. At the same time, Athena just opened the door and came in. What a strange smell. Suddenly smelling the strange smell left in the air, for some reason, Athena couldn't help but blush. Are you alone? Looking at Dustless leisurely soaking in the bath, Athena's cheeks were full of suspicion. She just saw a figure in a trance. It was just me before. Now there's another one. Dustless looked lazy. Erica? Athena asked expectantly, but for some reason, she was somewhat disappointed. Dustless raised his arm and shook his fingers lightly. He teased, Erica. She's not here. You can look for her yourself if you don't believe me. I think Erica went upstairs to sleep. Besides, the person I'm talking about is you, Miss Athena. You ambushed me when I was taking a bath. I can sue you for molestation. I molested you. Even with her calmness, Athena's lips twitched violently. Looking down at Dustless's smiling face, she felt that he was asking for a beating. Was his brain damaged by the water? Chapter 1454. Athena was quite taken aback by Dustless's words. She stared at him with her gem-like eyes, not minding that he was naked at all. Perhaps to Athena, this was just his skin. If you don't know how to, then leave now. Dustless ordered, but he was flustered by Athena's stare. Humph, did you secretly take advantage of me? Athena asked in an extremely unfriendly tone. Afraid that Dustless would misunderstand, she quickly added, I'm asking on behalf of Jinghua and the other two. Secretly? Am I that kind of person? Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he was laughing inwardly. If not me, then who is? You think I look like you? Glancing at Dustless's smooth and well-muscled body from the corner of her eye, she couldn't help but nod inwardly. This guy's skin was fair and beautiful. If he wore a girl's clothes, he would definitely be a great beauty. Is that so? But the truth is that I'm innocent. If you don't believe me, feel free to search. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly and pointed at all the places in the bathroom, indicating that Athena could look anywhere she wanted. How could such a small place hide from a god? Humph, you think I don't dare. Athena snorted and walked around a few times, her frown growing deeper and deeper. Little guy, you want to fight with me? You tricked me last time. This time, I'm going to pay you back double, plus interest. Staring at Athena's curvaceous figure, Dustless's heart throbbed. Everyone loved a fair and graceful woman. How is it, Miss Athena? Have you found any trace of Erica? A few minutes later, Dustless's laughter was full of mockery and laughter. If you love me, just say it. There's no need to use such a despicable trick to watch me bathe. Next time, just say it. Athena's mouth twitched as she glared at Dustless. She was sure that there was someone else in the bathroom, but she had no evidence. Keep pretending. I'm not leaving this place today. Don't let Erica out if you dare. Athena crossed her arms in front of her chest, as if Dustless was going to win. This guy, Dustless frowned hard after hearing that. Erica had been put into the space of godly might. He couldn't keep her there forever, could he? This guy's head must have been kicked by a donkey, Dustless slandered in his mind. Why is he so obsessed with me today? Is he trying to embarrass me on purpose? Dustless began to doubt Athena's motives. Looking at her stubborn expression, he felt a headache coming on. He had to use his trump card. I'm going to put on my clothes. Please leave. Don't even think about it. Athena pouted and refuted, not only will I not leave, but I will also let you put on your clothes. Don't forget that I said that I would be your servant after I lost to you in our battle. Then, Athena walked to Dustless with her pajamas. Damn it. Dustless secretly hesitated. It was fine if Erica was locked in the space of godly might by herself for a while, but nobody could stand it in the long run. Who would be able to bear being locked up in a desolate world with no signs of human habitation? But Athena was so stubborn that it was obvious she wanted to catch them in the act. Dustless was also helpless. He couldn't just throw Athena out. Put on my clothes. Dustless stood up from the water and walked to Athena naked with a vague smile on his lips. This jerk. Athena secretly cursed. Blushing, she gritted her teeth and helped Dustless dry the water. Not bad. I've made enough of a bargain today. Dustless secretly rejoiced. Not only had he taken down Erica, but he had also asked Athena, a goddess, to put on his clothes for him. He couldn't have felt better. Although Athena was a high and mighty goddess, she was very meticulous in her work. She helped Dustless dry the water on his body, dried his hair, and finally helped Dustless put on his pajamas. It was rare for a goddess to show her tender side. Miss Athena, I'm going to bed. Hee hee. If you're willing, I'd love to sleep with you. When he went upstairs, Dustless smiled at Athena in delight. In your dreams. Athena glared at Dustless fiercely with a wretched expression. Confused, Dustless said shamelessly, You said yourself that you're my servant. Why can't you sleep with me? Also, look how compatible we are. Compatible? Bullsh *T. Do you think I'm a nymphomaniac like them? Don't dream about it, Mr. Godslayer. Athena said angrily. Although she said it so harshly, Athena couldn't deny that Dustless was indeed a good match for her, whether in strength or status, he was not inferior to her. In terms of strength, he was far more powerful than Athena. Insensible woman. Seeing that Athena was so insensible, Dustless didn't bother to waste his breath. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea, and there was no need to be entangled. Creak. Pushing open the door, his observation hockey spread out. After noticing that no one was there, Dustless launched his dojutsu. Kamui. It was not until then that the naked Erica fell out of the space of divine power. Where was that just now? Erica's eyes were empty and her face was blank. She found that her understanding of Dustless was only the tip of the iceberg. That strange world was barren, but it really existed. Hearing this, Dustless didn't hide it and said directly, "That's my world, one of my dojutsu, and its usual use is to prevent certain things from being used." Erica stared at Dustless angrily. This guy really doesn't know the hunger of the hungry. Such a powerful and unique trick is actually a place to store things. It's a waste of God's gift. Chapter 1455. 2 days later, in Italy, on a warm beach. Dustless and the others all took a plane to Italy. Several women played beach volleyball by the seaside, and this time, they also called the Witch of Sardinia, Miss Lucurezia, to come out. Young people are really energetic. Lying lazily on the sand, Dustless gently looked at the frolicking Erica and others. He shook his head slightly. "You don't look old." Lucurezia was speechless. If Dustless thinks that he's old, then what is she? Old witch? Lucurezia always felt that Dustless was mocking her in disguise. "My heart is old." Dustless sighed. After experiencing several worlds, his appearance has never changed, but the things he has experienced are too many to count, which is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. He beat Uchiha Madara, abused Hashirama, kicked a marine admiral, humiliated Whitebeard, killed the so-called gods. In short, Dustless has experienced too much. Every time he thinks about it, his head is dizzy. In fact, his real age is more than hundreds of years. By the way, where did that little girl Liliana go? Glancing around, Dustless found that Liliana has long disappeared, and even Athena went somewhere. Really, Liliana still likes to meddle in other people's business. Salvatore Toni's actions have nothing to do with us, why did she get involved? Thinking of the Hera's stone pillar used for worship here, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He already vaguely understood where Liliana went. The heart of a saint is playing tricks. In a dark secret room where you can't even see your own fingers. The emerald stone pillar was filled with the vicissitudes of life, exuding a mysterious light, and the ancient dragon carvings on the stone pillar can be seen. It's estimated that it's been there for many years. Ta-ta-ta. Light footsteps suddenly came, and a young man with a savage face and a big sword on his shoulder appeared in the dark space. His eyes often jumped with a cold and sharp light, and his appearance was very threatening. However, the only thing that made people afraid was the scar on this mysterious expert's face. It was especially terrifying in the dark night. Looking closely, this person was none other than Salvatore Anthony. Salvatore Toni. Liliana caught sight of the young man's figure and recalled the conflict between him and Dustless. Her heart could not help but sink as she held the western sword tightly with both of her hands. He looked as if he was facing a great enemy. That fellow's companion. Wherever he goes, he's like a ghost. Salvatore Toni snorted. Dustless had caused him a serious psychological barrier that he would never forget. The gap between them was so big that even Salvatore Toni, who had always been optimistic, was about to suffer from depression. Also, the scar that Athena left on my face, I will pay her back double in the future. Salvatore vowed with an expression full of endless confidence. But why did you attack Hera's stone pillar? Liliana was displeased and said sternly, the consequences of splitting Hera's stone pillar are unimaginable. That is a dragon condensed from the evolution of this land. Once it is damaged, this land may not be able to recover for several years. Idiot, have you forgotten? I'm a god slayer, a king. Salvatore Toni smiled indifferently, if it can't be recovered, then so be it. What does it have to do with me? Humans are selfish, and the god slayer is no exception. Dustless and Athena had destroyed him one after another, leaving an indelible impression on Salvatore Toni. Therefore, it was good to release the dragon. It would be best if it could attract a few dragon slayers. I see. Are you planning to use the dragon that was spurted out by the essence of the earth as bait? Liliana was stunned. She suddenly understood Salvatore Toni's motive. This guy was devastated and crushed by Dustless and Athena, leaving a serious psychological trauma. Therefore, he wanted to use the dragon to attract some disobedient gods and kill them to obtain authority. Only after obtaining new authority could he continue to fight with Dustless and Athena. Those two monsters were too strong. Even if you obtain new authority, you can't defeat the king. Liliana's face was cold. In her heart, Dustless was the strongest. Even Athena, a god, was subdued by him. Marquis Warban was also killed by Dustless, and Salvatore Toni was able to escape by luck. You are right. At my current level, I am indeed no match for Athena and Dustless. I even suspect that the two of them can kill me instantly. Salvatore Toni was disappointed and frustrated. It was fine if it was Athena. After all, she was the trinity of gods. But they were all god-slayers. Why did Dustless have to be considered a cheat? It was too unfair. Therefore, Salvatore, who was unwilling to give up, could only find another way. He chose to hunt the gods to obtain other authorities. However, the disobedient gods could not appear at will. The dragon formed by the essence of the earth was the best bait to attract the disobedient gods. Ignorant fool. Liliana's words were full of sarcasm. She suddenly sneered, "Do you think that Lord Dustless has been using authority so far? Then you will never be able to surpass him. I can tell you clearly that the king is using his own strength, not the authority of the gods. He disdains it. You, a knight, dare to look down on me." Salvatore Toni's old face turned black. It was fine that Dustless and Athena looked down on him, but he could not bear Liliana's sarcasm. Chapter 1456. Liliana ignored Salvatore Toni's rage. Her expression was as usual, and her bright eyes glowed with scorching colors. She did not feel that she had spoken arrogantly or that there was something wrong with her. After all, most of the god-slayers fought with the authority of God. Just like Kusanagi Protector in the original work, would he still be powerful without the authority of Welslana? Obviously, it was impossible. Dustless had been using his own power from the beginning to the end. Are you tired of living? Salvatore glanced at Liliana coldly, and the murderous intent on his face almost materialized. Dustless humiliated him. There was nothing he could do about it. He was not as strong as Dustless. Unfortunately, you are just a little knight. You should be honored that I am talking to you. Now, you are humiliating me even more. How dare you? I will deal with you after I finish my business. Salvatore Toni glanced at Liliana fiercely, and finally chose to kill Hera's stone pillar first. I heard that you are very strong, but there is nothing in this world that I can't split open. Salvatore Toni stared at Hera's stone pillar that was filled with emerald light. His eyes were filled with cold light, and the heavy sword in his hand was unsheathed with all his strength. Whoosh! The sword blade slashed straight at Hera's stone pillar, and the power was unstoppable. Damn it! Seeing this, Liliana was furious. She did not expect this guy to be so willful. He slashed without hesitation. He was indeed the most brainless king. Poochie! Hera's stone pillar suddenly split into two, and a large amount of light suddenly erupted into the sky. A large mass of green light appeared, and the outline of a dragon faintly appeared. It's best to attract a few more disobedient gods. Salvatore Toni smiled sinisterly, and his tone revealed endless expectations. For creatures like dragons, some disobedient gods had a unique hobby of killing. Next, it's time to deal with you. Salvatore Toni shifted his gaze and stared at Liliana with emotionless eyes. He said in a deep voice, "I'm not a despicable guy like Marquis Oban. I won't capture you and threaten others. So, draw your sword." This idiot. Could it be that he still wants to kidnap Liliana? Damn it, do you think I'm air? But this guy's reaction is really slow. I've been here for half a day, but he didn't even notice my presence. Dustless, who was observing in the dark, shook his head. He was speechless at this 8th grader. Ao 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 ao. At the same time, a loud and clear dragon's roar resounded through the endless night. Looking up, they saw a large emerald dragon spreading its wings and flying high in the sky. Its extraordinary and mighty appearance made people feel deep veneration. The dragon's roar coming from its throat made people want to worship it uncontrollably. He's just playing to the gallery. Dustless found this so-called dragon costume strange no matter how he looked at it. He felt an indescribable discomfort. He always felt that this guy was like a flying lizard, without any of the arrogance that a dragon should have. But this Salvatore Tony isn't too stupid. He knows that he's no match for me. He wants to obtain more authority and even wants to use this dragon as a bait. His intelligence is barely passable. Dustless nodded slightly. As a transmigrator, he knew that there were many dragon slayers in this world. Moreover, there seemed to be such a person in Italy right now. Now, I'll deal with you first. Salvatore Tony's eyes were like torches. He touched the hideous scar on his face. Even though it had already formed a scar and would recover after resting for a while, he still felt a stabbing pain in his heart. It was fine if he was defeated by Dustless. It was fine if he was defeated by his maidservant. If he was defeated by this knight in front of him, Salvatore Tony felt that he should just die. There was no need to live anymore. Chapter 1457. Roar, 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 roar. The ancient dragon roar that belonged to this era shook the heavens and the earth. Even hundreds of miles away, the arrogant and loud voice could be heard. How can a lizard be so arrogant? Dustless pouted, considering if he should release the Great Red to attack them. After all, the Great Red was over 100 meters tall, and this dragon formed by the Earth's spiritual energy was just a pocket-sized toy. However, Salvatore Tony is quite smart. He actually wants to use this dragon to attract the disobedient god's attention. That's a good idea. Dustless sighed with emotion. At the beginning of the mythological system, it was mainly a matriarchal society. However, as time changed, the gods led by Zeus, the god of the sky, finally overthrew the matriarchal society at that time. Creatures like dragons were very sacred in the matriarchal society at that time, such as Athena. On the contrary, the male gods led by Zeus were not interested in dragons. Originally, I'm not interested in a little girl like you. However, since you dare to provoke me, the king, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Salvatore Tony approached Liliana with his sword, giving her a huge sense of oppression. After all, this kid was a real god slayer. His strength was far from what a little girl like Liliana could compare with. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Salvatore Tony stomped his feet on the ground and pounced forward like a storm. He swung his great sword horizontally. Liliana was shocked and cursed in her heart. Not only was this guy's swordsmanship extremely strong, but his speed was also unbelievably fast. Clang, clang, clang. Although Liliana barely blocked Salvatore Tony's heavy sword, she was also forced to retreat a distance of 5 to 6 meters before she could stabilize her body. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Salvatore Tony refused to stop and pounced forward again with his great sword. Is this the power of a king? Sure enough, I'm still far from it. Liliana smiled bitterly. She looked at Salvatore Tony, who was rushing over, and felt despair. Regardless of whether she would kill him or not, she did not plan to live anymore. As a knight, she was captured by the enemy. Although Salvatore Toni would not use Liliana to threaten Dustless, she still chose to die. Have you made up your mind? Young girl. Salvatore Anthony jumped up, and the raised sword fell in an instant. Clang! 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 The huge sword slashed down, and the huge vibration made Salvatore Toni's arm numb. He opened his eyes wide and saw a thin figure grabbing his sword. What kind of freak is this guy? How could he grab my sword with one hand? Salvatore Toni's old face turned green. It was fine if others were heaven-defying and abnormal, because there was still a degree to speak of. But this guy in front of him was a living prehistoric monster. The newcomer's messy black hair fluttered in the wind. He was not tall, but not too short either. He was about 1.75 meters tall. Even the dark night sky could not cover his deep and bright black eyes. They were very dazzling. Dustless. It's you again. Salvatore Toni put away his great sword, knowing that the show he had carefully prepared for today had come to an end. From just now, Salvatore Toni came to a helpless and cruel reality. He seemed to be unable to catch up with Dustless in this life. You have guts to hit my knight. Dustless's face did not change, but his tone was obviously low. Marquis Aubin has disappeared. I don't need to say more. You know what this means. Hearing this, Salvatore Toni's heart sank. He naturally understood what Dustless meant. It was obvious that Marquis Warban had been killed. The God Slayer could be killed. To be fair, if he had not seen Dustless, Salvatore Toni would not have believed it at all. But after seeing how powerful Dustless was with his own eyes, Salvatore Toni understood one thing. The so-called God Slayer was, in fact, just a slightly bigger, stronger, and fatter ant in front of a certain person. For example, Dustless in front of him. Salvatore Toni often felt that he could not catch up with Dustless even if he rode on a rocket. I am indeed not as good as you. Not to mention other aspects, even my best swordsmanship is not as good as yours. Salvatore Toni sighed. He was so disappointed that he sat on the ground. He was not as good as Dustless in what he was best at. It was needless to say how depressed he was. Ow, 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 ow. At the same time, a beast's roar came again. It was obviously different from the soul-stirring dragon's roar just now. This roar was full of endless nobility, like a god descending from the sky. This is the god of disobedience. Liliana and Salvatore Toni's eyes lit up. Dustless also looked at the sky. Under the black night sky, a man riding a winged Pegasus descended from the sky. This person had long golden hair that was as dazzling as gold. He had a face that was more beautiful than a woman's and exuded a noble temperament. This dragon formed by the eruption of the underground spiritual energy has indeed attracted that guy, Dustless said softly. Obviously, he already knew the identity of the person who had come. Which god of disobedience is it? Salvatore Toni and Liliana asked at the same time. His name is Perseus. He is a hero and is quite strong. A black shadow suddenly descended from the sky and answered for Dustless. But this guy's behavior is really bad. He actually killed a dragon shamelessly. This crisp and pleasant voice was obviously a female voice, and Dustless was quite familiar with it. Without looking, he was 100% sure that it was Athena. Chapter 1458. Dustless glanced at Athena with interest. In fact, she could be said to be of the same origin as this dragon, so she was quite disgusted with gods like Perseus. Ao, 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 ao. At the same time, the arrogant cry from before descended from the sky again. Dustless frowned slightly and glanced over. A blond man suddenly appeared in front of him. This guy is my prey. Salvatore Toni was overjoyed. After being severely ravaged by Dustless, he had a psychological shadow. If he wanted to defeat this guy, he had to obtain a stronger and more heaven-defying authority. Whoosh! Whoosh! Salvatore Tony ran away while carrying his huge sword. Are you just going to watch him leave without doing anything? Athena stared at Dustless and instigated, if Perseus is killed by Salvatore Tony, obtaining his authority may cause you trouble. Dustless heard Athena's words and just curled his lips and said in disdain, your words are not convincing at all. You just want to trick me into dealing with Perseus. As for the reason, it was probably because Perseus bullied that dragon. God slayers and disobedient gods are natural enemies. This is not a trick. It is your duty to get rid of him. Athena was unmoved and still maintained a righteous expression. And Athena's eyes narrowed slightly, and her face quickly warmed up. She revealed a gentle smile and said, even if you don't find trouble with Perseus, do you think he will let you go? The existence of god slayers is a threat to disobedient gods. The hostile relationship between god slayers and disobedient gods was destined and could not be changed. Is that so? Dustless's gaze fell on Athena's eyes and said bluntly, you are the disobedient god, but you still get along well with me. Hearing this, Athena's lips curled into a smug smile and said loudly, that is because you are greedy for my beauty. Puff! Dustless almost fell down, and his eyeballs almost fell out. He didn't expect Athena to be so shameless. He hadn't done anything out of line to Athena, even though what she said was the truth. In short, I won't join a boring duel for no reason. It's better to go back and sleep. Wuchen shook his head slightly. When he was about to turn around and leave, a delicate figure stopped him. My king, it's your responsibility to protect the world. Liliana said with a serious expression. Seriously, why are there so many Chinibu youngsters around me? All of them want to save the world. I'm not a great saint, and I don't have the heart of a saint. I'm almost a nanny now. Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry. Liliana's stern gaze was as firm as a rock. If he did not kill Perseus today, he would not be able to leave. Just leave it to Salvatore Tony. Turning his head, he glanced at Salvatore Tony, whose face was full of excitement as if he had been injected with chicken blood. Dustless decisively pushed the responsibility to this guy. No. Athena gently shook her white jade thumb, blinked her eyes, and said seriously, this is your territory. How can you let Salvatore Tony deal with the enemy? Hearing this, Dustless was speechless. This is Italy. To some extent, it is indeed his territory, or rather, this is Erica's territory. Does Athena mean that my family is in trouble? Are you going to stand by and do nothing? This ridiculous reason is barely acceptable. Dustless had a strange look on his face. He didn't expect Athena to find a reason to trick him into taking action. Hey! God Slayer. The god of disobedience is right in front of your eyes, draw your sword, God Slayer. An arrogant voice came slowly, Dustless raised his head slightly, and a sharp arrow was coming quickly. You want to die, I didn't want to fight with you, but you have to find trouble. Dustless frowned, and a ray of light shot out from his fingertips. Laser. The person who wanted to attack Dustless with an attack was Perseus, who was riding a white Pegasus. He looked arrogant, and his handsome face was full of indescribable pride. His eyes were full of confidence and arrogance. Boom boom boom. The golden light beam and the falling arrow came into close contact, and the two turned into dust together, and there was no clear winner. Where is that idiot Salvatore Tony? Dustless looked around, and his eyes shot straight into the distance. His dark and deep eyes looked around, and he did not find the trace of Salvatore Tony for a long time. In desperation, Dustless could only use observation hockey to search. No wonder Salvatore Toni was willing to give up Perseus. It turned out that he found a better prey. What a guy who likes the new and hates the old. Dustless complained with dissatisfaction. Through the perception of observation hockey, he found that Salvatore Toni was chasing a black shadow. It should be Métis without a doubt. No wonder Athena instigated me to deal with Perseus. She was probably afraid that I would discover Métis' existence and kill her. What a thoughtful little girl. Looking at Athena with interest, Dustless changed his attitude towards this slender girl. What's with that look in your eyes? Finding that Dustless was looking at her with great interest, Athena felt guilty, and she felt that her whole body and heart were seen through. Don't ignore my existence, you too. Perseus had an unhappy expression on his face. I came to such a flashy entrance, but you two only care about flirting with each other and ignoring my existence. How dare you? Chapter 1459. Perseus was furious. You two bastards should at least pay attention to my face. After all, I am a prestigious public figure. But you two bastards are flirting with each other in public. Moreover, you are showing off your love in front of a god. Do you have any rules? Do you know the law? Yo, Dustless waved his hand and looked at Perseus in boredom. He asked with a lazy expression, kneel down and kowtow 3 times, then leave this place. You can barely survive. Hearing this, Perseus's old face twitched. He asked with a fake smile, what did you say? I didn't hear it clearly. Please repeat it for me. I must have heard it wrong. Perseus shook his head in his heart. Would anyone in the world dare to talk to him like this? The answer was absolutely no. Even Athena, who was also a god, did not dare to speak so arrogantly. It's fine if you are just an idiot, but now it seems that you are deaf. In the world, how can there be such a stupid god like you? Dustless mocked without changing his expression. You! Hearing this, Perseus, who couldn't bear it anymore, was furious. He raised his hand and several sharp arrows were shot at Dustless along with his resentment. Poochie! 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 Even though he was hit on the spot, Dustless still stood there safe and sound. There was a contemptuous smile on his face. What kind of freak is this bastard? And, he killed a god, right? What kind of power is this? This kind of attack seems to be immune to physical attacks. Which god has this left arm power? If I catch him, I will definitely chop him up. Perseus was extremely depressed. He cursed the bastard who threw the glint fruit to Dustless. Physical attacks did not work. Was there any need to continue this battle? Want to run away? A scythe appeared behind Athena. She stared at Perseus with torch-like eyes. She keenly noticed the intention to retreat in Perseus' eyes. Her cold eyes quietly told him that as long as he dared to run away, she would kill him. Run! Perseus's mouth twitched, and he shouted angrily, "It's really vulgar to use such a vulgar word to describe me. You have no taste, Your Excellency Athena. You're just a god from the countryside. What's there to be proud of?" Dustless curled his lips and bluntly attacked. Pooh! Perseus wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He gritted his teeth and glared at Dustless and Athena. He sadly found that, in terms of strength, he was not even as good as Dustless and Athena at bickering. Of course, the gods did not have the ability to bicker. They preferred to solve problems with their fists. Swish! Swish! Dustless transformed into a fleeting golden light that whizzed out. He came without a shadow and left without a trace. Even he found it difficult to capture that fleeting speed. When he realized that Dustless had appeared, Perseus was already in big trouble. Lightspeed kick. When Dustless's body appeared, the big shiny foot had already mercilessly hit Perseus' cheek. Perseus' entire body disappeared in an instant after being kicked. Swish! 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 Perseus wanted to stabilize his body, but he couldn't walk at all. The powerful force was too exaggerated. It was as if he was hit by a 1,000-ton giant mountain. Caw caw caw. After retreating for a few hundred meters, Perseus barely managed to stabilize his body. He smashed through several walls, and a 200 to 300 meter long ditch was formed on the ground. There was still blood at the corner of his mouth. He was in a very sorry state. This bastard, he can't be a monster, right? Perseus' face was black. He realized that he couldn't even speak properly. His mouth seemed to have been kicked crooked by Dustless. It was so painful that he grimaced and complained incessantly. But the physical pain was far less than the mental blow. How was he going to show his face in the future after his mouth was kicked crooked? How was he going to face others if others knew about it? If he couldn't wash away the shame, he should just find a place with no one around and kill himself. Anyway, he would probably be mocked and ridiculed by others. This bastard doesn't give me any face at all. Perseus was furious. I hid you for a long time, and your family was unharmed. But Dustless moved a little and my mouth was kicked crooked by you. How am I supposed to live? Could it be that this guy's head was smashed silly by the impact just now? He's even stuttering. Dustless went to Athena's side and asked speechlessly. Perseus's speech was abnormal. I say, you, Athena opened her mouth and realized that she was speechless in the end. She closed her mouth again and couldn't help but sympathize with Perseus. You were clearly the one who kicked someone else's mouth crooked, causing Perseus to be unable to speak eloquently. Now, you have to say that Perseus's head was smashed silly. This speed of shirking responsibility is too fast. You're really going too far. But this Perseus isn't that easy to defeat, Athena suddenly said. It seemed that she was very familiar with Perseus's abilities. It's indeed different. His recovery ability is amazing. Dustless's eyes widened slightly and nodded undeniably. Following his line of sight, he was surprised to find that the footprint left on Perseus's handsome face was quickly recovering. This seems to be Sun's ability. I still remember that this kid used this ability to resurrect after being killed by Kusanagi Protector in the original work. Dustless nodded slightly. This resurrection ability is quite good. Just as Dustless was thinking about how to deal with Perseus, the silent Athena made a shocking move. While Dustless was thinking, her delicate red lips took the initiative to seal Dustless's mouth. Chapter 1460. Athena's sudden action not only caught Dustless off guard and surprised him, even Perseus, who had threatened to teach Dustless a lesson, was stunned. His entire body was filled with jealousy, like a vinegar jar. Damn it, how can this guy? Perseus was so depressed that his teeth were about to shatter. He was really jealous of Dustless's luck with women. It should be understood that the god Slayer and the god of disobedience were two completely opposite existences. They were destined to fight to the death. It was Athena who took the initiative to kiss him. Dustless was definitely cheating. Athena, you. Woo-woo, even Dustless was depressed, let alone Perseus who did not understand. When he was about to open his mouth to ask, he realized that he could not speak at all. Humph. You two extremes should just die. A divine bow appeared in his hand, and countless arrows were aimed at Athena and Dustless. Perseus's face was filled with coldness. He pulled the bowstring to its limit and finally shot it out without hesitation. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The dense cold light was about to shoot through Dustless and Athena. This guy, seeing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows. He could completely ignore the existence of the arrows. After all, this kind of simple physical attack was unable to break through the elemental transformation. However, Athena would be pierced through, even though she also had the ability to not die. Let's stop here. Now is not the time to be intimate. Just as he was about to push Athena away, a bunch of memories about Perseus's past appeared in his mind. In a daze, Dustless understood why Athena offered her red lips. It's completely unnecessary. But I'm a bastard who doesn't take advantage of it. Dustless blinked and smiled rather wretchedly. His gaze focused on the incoming arrow, and his eyes underwent a drastic change. Smile properly for me. When you're shot through, I won't help you collect your corpses. Even though they were hundreds of meters away, Perseus could still see the faint smile on Dustless's face. He immediately flew into a rage and could even see the mockery in his eyes. Dustless's unbridled arrogance was clearly saying that if it weren't for him, Athena wouldn't have taken the initiative to come to him. He wanted to thank him. Bang bang bang. At this moment, a few muffled explosions suddenly sounded in the air. Then, Perseus realized that the divine arrow he trusted had disappeared into thin air. Strange, what's going on? Perseus widened his eyes and said without hesitation. The arrow that he had shot out had mysteriously disappeared. He didn't even know who did it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several more beams of cold light shot out, but the result was the same. A few muffled explosions sounded in the air, and then the divine arrows were destroyed by the destructive force. Who the hell is it? Don't play tricks behind my back, stand up if you have the guts. Perseus shouted loudly after carefully locking down the area within a radius of a few hundred meters. However, what responded to him was endless silence. This idiot, does he think that someone else is helping me? Dustless's mouth moved slightly, and his face was full of sneers. His right eye had undergone a drastic change and turned into Rinnegan Sharingan. The power of his eyes was enough to annihilate the world. Tomb of Samsara, border prison. Perhaps Perseus couldn't find it, but Dustless, who had Rinnegan, could see it clearly. His shadow was approaching Perseus. Just now, it was his shadow that blocked the arrow. It was ridiculous that this guy thought that someone was secretly helping Dustless. A mysterious man with countless strange tricks. After a while, Athena was completely Dustless's mouth and glanced back at Perseus. She could feel Perseus's resentment and entanglement, but she could only smile in response. This guy has an immortal body. Dustless said enviously through the knowledge passed by Athena. Immortal body is a rare ability, but whether it is Athena or Perseus, they both have this kind of ability. They are worthy of the name of God. So what, you can still deprive him of his ability with your power, why don't you thank me? Athena put her hands on her hips and looked very cute. Thank. Hearing this, Dustless showed a malicious smile, shrugged his shoulders and said shamelessly, I really don't have any valuable gifts, and you took advantage of me for no reason, so now I have to take it back. Defend my dignity as a man. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless used a speed faster than the speed of light to rush in front of Athena and gently pecked her fair face. You bastard! After being stunned for a few seconds, Athena, who came back to her senses, was shocked and angry. Her cheeks quickly heated up and turned dark red in an instant. I kindly told you about Perseus's past and background, but you actually didn't recognize my kindness and took advantage of it. Aren't you too shameless? In reality, that kind of spirit is dispensable. Even if you deprive him of his ability, it might not have any effect. He can still be resurrected. Dustless lazily said softly, of course, this doesn't mean that he is invincible. As long as I make up my mind, I can still make him suffer a fate worse than death. In the original work, Kusanagi Sentinel deprived Perseus of his ability, but this guy was still resurrected in the end. At the same time, Dustless's shadows had quickly approached Perseus, but this guy was still staring at Dustless with an expression of, "I will kill you." Chapter 1461. Dustless smiled without saying a word. This was what it meant to be short-sighted. What is this guy laughing at? Athena frowned and stared at Dustless indignantly. She said unhappily, "I have already told you everything about Perseus. Hurry up and deal with him. You owe me a favor. I have already dealt with him. It's just that you didn't see it clearly." Dustless shrugged and said helplessly. In this world, he was the only one who could see clearly. Everyone else was the same as blind people. Are you looking down on my IQ? Athena was even more dissatisfied. She raised her fist threateningly, as if saying that she would beat him up if he dared to lie to her. Take a closer look. Silver looked in Perseus' direction and smiled very calmly. Maybe Athena couldn't see it, but Dustless saw his shadows clearly. At this moment, Perseus was completely surrounded. Slap! A sound attracted Athena's attention. She looked up and saw that Perseus' face was inexplicably red. Moreover, there was a clear palm print on his face. Athena was instantly dumbfounded. Her jewel-like purple-black eyes stared blankly at Perseus. Then, she released thousands of owls and searched for a long time, but she still couldn't figure out who attacked Perseus. You did it. Looking at Dustless's gloating expression, Athena rolled her eyes and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This guy dared to slap the god of disobedience. Athena secretly gave him a thumbs up. Who else do you think did it? This guy has a crazy and cool expression. It's an eyesore to look at him. Let him be disgraced. By the way, we can take some photos and hand them over to the magazine. We can also make some extra money. I'm embarrassed about the money spent on eating Jing every day. Wu Qin said with a serious expression. Pfft. Hearing this, Athena couldn't help but spit out. Fortunately, Dustless was elementalized. You slapped him for this reason. Athena's mouth twitched. You know nothing. Staring at Athena snappily, Dustless said righteously, there are a lot of brainless fans in this part of Japan. They can record it and sell it for a good price. It was rare for him to pay attention to Athena. Dustless took out the camera and focused on Perseus. Paw 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 paw. In just a minute, Perseus was slapped hundreds of times. It was extremely miserable. In just a few minutes, Perseus' face was swollen like a pig's head. Bastard! Who are you? Come out! Perseus had a million mythological beasts galloping in his heart. He was being treated like a pig for no reason, and his heart was bleeding. Although the ability of the sun could be perfectly restored, anyone would be angry if they were hit by someone for no reason. What made Perseus the most was that he didn't even know who did it. Caw caw caw. In order to capture the moment when Perseus was in a sorry state, Dustless seized the opportunity to take a few exciting pictures. Bastard, are you the one who did it? Perseus sensed Wu Qin's existence and immediately pointed his spear at him. He roared, just you wait, I won't let you off so easily. Is that so? Hearing this, Dustless smiled indifferently and snapped his fingers very lazily. Bang 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 bang, the shadows received Dustless' order and immediately carried out a series of inhumane destruction on Perseus. His cheeks that had just recovered turned purple again. He, seeing such a funny scene, even with Athena's temperament, she also let out an intoxicating smile. This guy was really too tragic. As the god of disobedience, he was extremely miserable at this moment. He was almost beaten up mercilessly by Dustless. Ow 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 ow. Perseus let out a blood-curdling scream. Dustless's shadows ruthlessly ravaged him. What was even more impressive was that they did not even let go of his manhood. Perseus wanted to cry but had no tears. His previous prestige had completely disappeared. He was stunned by Dustless's violent beating. He suddenly realized that being alive was also an incomparable thing. A little bit can be sold for a good price. In a short while, Dustless used up all his films. Looking at the miserable Perseus, he waved his hand, and the attacks of the shadows also stopped. Perseus' value was already gone. This last attack was left to Dustless himself. "You bastard!" Perceiving that the rain of bullets that destroyed him had stopped, Perseus's face turned green. These few minutes were definitely the most painful and difficult period in his life. As a man, the most important part of his body was destroyed countless times. Although he could recover without limit, this kind of miserable experience would leave a psychological shadow even for a god. Therefore, Perseus stared at Dustless with red eyes. He even had the thought of swallowing him alive. They were both men. As a man, why should he make things difficult for another man? "You're already in such a miserable state, and you still want to take revenge on me. Wash your neck clean and let me kill you. This way, you can also be free." "Perseus, with such a miserable memory, you must be suffering for living." Dustless walked leisurely towards Perseus. This guy doesn't seem to intend to deprive him of the sun ability. Does he intend to kill him directly? Is this really okay? Athena asked doubtfully. "Even if I die, I'll bury you with me." Perseus, who was destroyed by Dustless, roared. Dustless was the stain of his life. This kind of person must be eradicated. Chapter 1462. Perseus planned to perish together with Dustless and leave behind this mark of shame. Living would be worse than death. Therefore, he planned to drag Dustless down to hell with him. However, even though dreams were beautiful, reality was cruel and merciless. Ta-ta-ta! A large sword flashed in Perseus's hand. He was like a hungry beast, and Dustless was a super feast that made one's appetite wet. He attacked without any regard for the consequences. Heaven-gathering cloud sword. Light flashed, and a divine sword that could cut through iron like mud appeared in his hand. "You want to perish together with me?" Dustless opened his mouth and revealed a contemptuous smile. It wasn't that he looked down on Perseus, but even if 10 Perseus were stacked together, he might not be able to kill him. Perseus's biggest highlight, the sun. However, Dustless also had this ability. To him, being immortal was just a small problem. As for the other advantages, there was no need to talk about them. Boom boom boom. The slashes of the two collided, and a huge explosion was heard. Violent airwaves swept out, and the buildings within dozens of meters were shattered. Obvious cracks were also left on the buildings 100 meters away. Ta-ta-ta, Perseus's expression changed drastically. Dustless's explosive power almost sent him flying. Although he barely blocked his slash, Perseus was also forced to retreat by the powerful force. He was in a sorry state. Not only that, even if Perseus could barely block Dustless' slash, his arm was still numb from the shock. He almost couldn't hold his sword and fell to the ground. What kind of monster is this bastard? Perseus gritted his teeth. He didn't know how many times he had repeated this sentence, but every time they fought, the shock that Dustless brought to him made him speak without thinking. "You are still in a daze when you are fighting with me." Dustless's sharp eyes caught Perseus's restless mind. He sneered and went forward with his sword. The golden edge took advantage of Perseus's carelessness and cut his cheek. Pfft! A scorched and hideous wound suddenly appeared on Perseus's handsome face. It was extremely terrifying. "Ah! You have an additional scar. You are much more domineering and cool. Even I'm scared." Dustless pretended to be scared, and then nodded with a smile, as if saying, "You have to thank me." F***ck your grandpa. Perseus was so angry that he vomited blood. Ignoring the stinging pain all over his body, he raised his sword and slashed towards Dustless's face. This shameless guy was really too quiet. His skin was as thick as a city wall. Putting aside the fact that he had taken advantage of Perseus, he was still so sarcastic. In particular, Dustless had such an aggrieved expression as if he was at a disadvantage. It was simply an insult to Perseus's intelligence. Clang! 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 As the two of them fought, the piercingly cold sounds of swords striking against each other resounded endlessly. It was an extremely intense exchange of blows. Bang bang bang. Dustless's eyes turned cold, and he increased his strength. Perseus was instantly sent flying. Seizing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, his silver hand swept out with the Heaven Cluster Cloud sword. Poochie! It had to be said that Dustless was indeed shameless. He specifically chose Perseus' vital parts and bombarded them indiscriminately. Perseus, who was extremely depressed, was frightened by this shameless fighting style and became timid, causing him to be full of flaws. Perseus really wanted to ask Dustless, "Who taught you such shameless swordsmanship?" However, he was too embarrassed to ask. Sometimes, when he took the initiative to ask the other party a question, it meant that he had lost. Perseus did not want to lose to such a scum. It was too sullen. Poochie! Seizing this rare opportunity, Dustless stabbed out with the Heaven Cluster Cloud sword in his hand. As a man, Perseus' most important part was immediately hit. As the Heaven Cluster Cloud sword was formed from compressed light, it carried a blazing temperature. Perseus' most important part was immediately hit. A-O, 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 A-O. A wail that was even more miserable than a pig being slaughtered resounded through the night. Perseus rolled on the ground in pain, and a disgusting burnt smell could be smelled in the air. What is this bastard's brain made of? He can actually come up with such a sinister move to deal with the god of disobedience. Athena's face was red. She spat lightly and turned her head. Perseus's miserable wail made even Athena panic. She couldn't help but tremble as she said, "If you can be reincarnated as a human in your next life, remember not to provoke people like Dustless. If you see him in the future, it's best to take a detour." Athena sincerely felt that as the god of disobedience, having such a nightmarish enemy like Dustless was simply too unlucky. To be honest, it's great that you have the ability, son. Staring at the rolling Perseus, Dustless suddenly laughed. It was very gentle and light, but in the ears of Perseus and Athena, it was as terrifying as a demon. "What do you want?" Perseus shivered. He was really afraid of such a pervert who did things without a bottom line. "There's no need to worry. I just want to invite you to participate in an experiment for the benefit of mankind." Dustless still had a smile on his face as he slowly approached Perseus. He didn't reveal the key points and was very mysterious. Could it be that he wants to? Athena suddenly thought of a terrible idea. The way she looked at Dustless was particularly strange. Not to mention Perseus, who was panicking and retreating, even Athena also took a few steps back. Now, many men can't enjoy a normal married life. Let me observe and study you 10,000 times. Anyway, you have the ability of the sun, so it can be repaired. Puff! A large patch of blood appeared on the dark ground. Perseus, who was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of old blood. He looked at Dustless bitterly. His resentful eyes were obviously saying, "Who wants to be your lab rat? You bastard, hurry up and die." Chapter 1463. Dustless slowly approached, and Perseus became more and more nervous. He knew that if he did not think of a way to defend himself, he would definitely be severely destroyed by Dustless again after he recovered. His pride would definitely not allow him to do that. Swish, swish, swish. The flash of light was extremely dazzling. Perseus was shocked. He knew that Dustless had cheated with his speed again, so he hurriedly picked up his sword to defend himself. Clang, clang, clang. This time, Perseus still received Dustless's attack like before, but the situation was even more serious and terrifying than the last time. Perseus' strength was not as good as Dustless, so he was forced to retreat. Boom, boom, boom. The huge energy ripples produced by the collision of the slashes were destructive. The ground was flattened, and a deep crater like a meteorite appeared. The most terrifying thing was that Dustless made Perseus finally understand what it meant to surpass the power of gods. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant, they slashed at each other hundreds of times. Every time, Perseus was at a serious disadvantage. Compared to Dustless, who was wielding the sword with one hand, he had to use both hands. Lightspeed kick. Taking advantage of the fact that Perseus could not defend himself, Dustless raised his leg and gave him a heavy kick. Boom, boom, boom. His face was seriously attacked again. The huge flash burned Perseus' body, and a nauseating smell filled the air. At this moment, he did not have the demeanor of a god of disobedience. He was simply like a beggar. Swish, swish, swish. An ear-piercing roar resounded throughout the world. Every time he heard this loud sound that was about to shatter his ears, Perseus's heart was filled with depression and tragedy. This was Dustless's signal to attack. Perseus looked up and saw a golden sword slashing straight at him. He hurriedly took out his precious sword to block it, but it was useless. Poochie! Perseus' precious accessory was directly cut off, and the flash pierced through his body. From his head to his stomach, there was a long and narrow scar. Gotcha! Dustless deliberately cut off a certain important part of Perseus's body. The part that he had just recovered once again felt a fatal pain. I at #yen%%. With a twisted face, Perseus cursed at Dustless. In his heart, a million King Alpaca's army were howling madly. Mother this bastard is too much. Don't worry, I won't kill you. My goal is to make you a eunuch 10,000 times. How many times had it been? Including the previous times, I don't think it's more than 100. Dustless said meaningfully, showing an expression of having to work harder. Perseus was so angry that he was trembling. His entire face was red as he cursed in his heart. If you personally experience what it feels like to be a eunuch, I'm afraid you will hate it even once. Come, let's continue our work. With a faint smile, Dustless forced Perseus into a corner and revealed a smile that was even more sinister than a demon's. Hurry up and go away, you lunatic! Perseus roared. His tone was filled with powerlessness. He really wanted to die. Compared to Dustless, a demon was as kind as an angel. Get lost! Picking up the surrounding stones, Perseus threw them with all his might. TSK, TSK. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. Dodging the incoming stones, Dustless had a mocking expression on his face. Originally, he was not interested in fighting with Perseus. However, this idiot insisted on testing Dustless's strength with the theory that the god Slayer and the disobedient god were heaven and earth. In the end, he could not blame others for his tragic ending. Looking at the evil Dustless, Perseus roared, "Even if I die..." "Oh, right." Perseus's eyes flashed with a bright light. He suddenly thought of a perfect escape plan. He was extremely excited. He could finally escape from this demon's control. Ha 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 ha, the joy of surviving a disaster came from Perseus's mouth. He was so excited that his whole body was trembling. Did this guy go crazy? Athena and Dustless lowered their heads and guessed. Perseus's abnormal state was really puzzling. Especially Athena, who was the most speechless. Dustless was also the #1 weirdo since ancient times to be able to drive a god crazy. However, this was only the beginning. Perseus's next move caused Dustless and Athena to be shocked in disbelief. He saw that Perseus was pointing a dagger at him with a cold gleam. Is this bastard thinking of committing suicide? Looking at each other, Dustless and Athena could see the intention of committing suicide in each other's eyes. Ha 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 ha. In this case, you can forget about torturing me. Perseus laughed loudly. His high-pitched laughter gave people the illusion that he had taken advantage of them. As a disobedient god, isn't he taking things too hard? Dustless was speechless. He should at least cherish his life. No, I can understand why he did this. Athena suddenly said. Combined with Dustless's actions, all of this was normal. Living was also endless humiliation, so it was better to die and end it all. Poochie. The sound of flesh being cut into pieces could be heard. Looking carefully, Perseus was indeed ruthless and strong. He was afraid that he would not be able to kill himself and actually separated his head from his body. His actions are really ruthless. Dustless secretly gave him a thumbs up. He killed himself in such a ruthless way, separating his head from his body. No one else could do it. However, this idiot is too arrogant. He makes it seem like I don't know his ability. Chapter 1464. Dustless muttered to himself in an extremely ridiculous tone. He wasn't a simple person like Kusanagi Tatsuki. He knew that even if this guy died now, he would still be resurrected due to his special ability. Not only Dustless, but Athena also understood. This guy is just taking advantage of the situation. Athena's tone turned cold. She felt that her intelligence had been insulted. If she didn't know about Perseus's ability, it would be fine, but she also knew that Perseus could be resurrected again. However, this guy was still pretending to be dead. Although Perseus's blood was spilled all over the ground and he couldn't be more dead, this was only temporary. It wouldn't be long before he would be resurrected. In a sense, this could be understood as pretending to be dead. Since you like to pretend to be dead so much, I'll let you die completely. Athena's arms shook slightly, and a scythe with cold light appeared in her hands. Forget it. Let's end it here. Waving his hand, Dustless only glanced at Perseus, then simply left. His cold eyes were as sharp as a knife and as clear as the stars. It was as if he had forgotten about Perseus in an instant. Are you planning to let him go? Athena, who had caught up, asked in astonishment. She suspected that her eyes were playing tricks on her. Dustless had just tortured Perseus to death, but now he was letting him go. Athena had the illusion that the sun had risen from the west. No, we don't have to be nosy. Someone will deal with that guy. We don't have to do such a thankless thing. He's just a tool for pleasure. It's obviously not worth it to work so hard for a tool. From the beginning to the end, Dustless had treated Perseus as a tool for pleasure. There was no need to spend too much time on him, and someone would help Dustless clean up the mess. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, about an hour had passed. Gulp. An unusual throbbing came from Perseus's decapitated head. Then, Perseus's decapitated head suddenly moved as if it was a corpse that had come to life. The most frightening thing was that his eyes, which were originally closed, actually opened strangely. Damn it, it hurts. Even though his head was separated from his body, Perseus still spoke and revealed an extremely human-like expression of pain. This was not the strangest thing. Perseus's headless body suddenly stood up and slowly walked towards the head that had fallen to the side. The most shocking thing was that Perseus placed his severed head on his neck. Buzz buzz buzz, the dark sky suddenly lit up. It was very warm as the sun. And the place that emitted the fluorescent light was Perseus' body. The shocking crack on his neck was slowly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Who? About 10 minutes later, Perseus's body was completely repaired. He was not in a hurry to leave. Perhaps because he was too tired, he only found a corner and sat down. That pervert. The moment Perseus sat down, Dustless's mischievous smile appeared in his mind. He couldn't help but shiver. He subconsciously opened his eyes and looked left and right, afraid that Dustless, the jinx, would come looking for him again. I must take revenge on him. After confirming that Dustless had disappeared, Perseus clenched his teeth. In his long life, the darkest, most terrifying, and most painful time when he was fighting with Dustless just now was the most painful time. It's best if I can join forces with the other gods of disobedience to deal with him. With my strength alone, I can't deal with Dustless. That guy can easily crush me without using his full strength. Moreover, he also has a god of disobedience by his side, Athena. This matter needs to be considered at length. Perseus sighed softly. Although he was a little disappointed, he did not despair. There was still a long time in the future. He firmly believed that Dustless would be unlucky one day. Dustless. Perseus, you seem to be in trouble. Do you need my help? A ghostly voice suddenly came from the dark night. It was as if it suddenly appeared from the bottom of his heart without any warning. Who is it? Hurry up and come out. After being stunned for a moment, Perseus quickly shouted loudly. At the same time, his eyes that were filled with murderous intent swept around. His gaze was sharper than a knife. Oh. It's really scary. About 3 to 4 meters in front of Perseus, a black light appeared, showing the outline of a girl about 13 or 14 years old. Yo! The mysterious girl smiled and raised her hand to summon. The first impression she gave was very gentle, but if one could see the ruthlessness in the depths of her eyes, they might not think so. You are. Your Excellency Athena. Perseus frowned deeply and looked at the girl. Then, he shook his head and said with certainty in a deep voice, No, although you look exactly the same, I can be sure that you are definitely two different people. Who exactly are you? Perseus asked cautiously. A long sword appeared in his hand, and there were obvious beads of sweat on his forehead. He gave off a feeling that he was powerless. The price of resurrection just now should not be small. It doesn't matter who I am. Stretching out a white finger, the mysterious girl shook it mischievously. But one thing is certain. Today, you will definitely die in this place. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. As soon as her voice fell, a sickle similar to Athena's appeared in the mysterious girl's hand. Her speed was extremely fast, and she appeared in front of Perseus in a flash. He had just fought with Dustless and was severely damaged. Now that he had to face this mysterious girl, Perseus was destined to die. Chapter 1465. Perseus was shocked. He didn't expect this fake Athena to be so ruthless. She didn't even give him a chance to say a few words and directly attacked him without distinguishing between right and wrong. Clang, clang, clang. Even if this fake Athena, Metis, wasn't as terrifying as Dustless, Perseus still couldn't handle it. Just now, when he fought with Dustless, he was exhausted mentally and physically. Especially when he was severely traumatized. As a result, he was now seriously at a disadvantage. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven to fight with Metis. Boom, boom, boom. Perseus was beaten until he kept retreating. He was extremely miserable. Previously, he was bullied and crushed by Dustless. Now, a bastard appeared out of nowhere to bully him. Outrageous. You only have such weak strength. Metis laughed sinisterly. There was deep disdain in his words. His tender arms looked as weak as willow branches, but that explosive power made it difficult for Perseus to resist. Poochie! Perseus' face turned pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. A conspicuous wound appeared on his abdomen. The miserable appearance of his flesh being torn apart was disgusting. One could even see his bones. Clang, clang, clang. Seeing such a scene, Métis grabbed Perseus tightly and his series of attacks became even more ferocious. Damn it, this crazy woman! Perseus shouted sharply. He realized that the situation was getting worse and worse. As time gradually passed, more and more obvious cracks appeared on Perseus' body. It was obvious that he was about to lose. Even if Perseus was still persevering, there was no doubt that his life would be lost in the end. There was no doubt that Métis was the person that Dustless said could help him clean up the mess. Speaking of which, is it really appropriate for us to be so leisurely? In Lucurasia's house, Athena, who had just finished bathing, asked Dustless. Dustless, who was sitting on the sofa, quietly read the newspaper as if he didn't hear Athena's words. Isn't this what you want to see? After a while, Dustless' inexplicable words stunned Athena. Perseus should have been killed. Dustless added. His expression was still as relaxed as ever. He looked at Athena, his bright eyes carrying a hidden meaning. Athena's eyes flashed with a hint of awkwardness. She was smart enough to understand what Dustless meant. I didn't expect you to be able to detect her presence. The Ashita Athena was referring to was naturally Métis. You're underestimating me. Dustless rolled his eyes at Athena and said, but... Athena, you are harming yourself. Sooner or later, she will come to us. Ah, the noble circle is really messy. You gods really make me worry. Of course, Dustless could understand Athena's helplessness. After all, Mortis was her mother. Humans were not plants. How could they be heartless? Who could kill their own mother? Moreover, Dustless had also heard a little about the matter between Métis and Zeus. According to his understanding, this was originally caused by Zeus' selfishness. In the end, Métis was also that innocent person. What are you going to do? Are you really going to let her devour you? Dustless frowned and asked. The way he looked at Athena changed. It was as if he was saying, don't try to trick me. After all, this was what Athena did in the original work. When she met Métis, she deliberately went easy on her, causing Kusanagi Protector to meet a deadly enemy. Are you afraid? Athena's eyes were rolling. At this moment, she looked very cunning and sinister. Me? Afraid? Ridiculous. Hearing this, Dustless sneered and said calmly, in my dictionary, there is no such word as afraid. She just doesn't have the heart to kill Métis. Her actions are understandable. Dustless immediately added. Thinking about the past between Métis and Zeus, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. If Zeus was in front of him, he would chop her into pieces and burn her alive. The main god, Cronus, was afraid that his children would overthrow him, so he devoured his newborn children one by one. It was Métis who helped the surviving Zeus to overthrow his father, forcing him to spit out the children he had swallowed. Zeus began to pursue her, and Métis kept transforming to escape. However, Zeus's will and ability were stronger than hers. In the end, he made her submit to his will, and she became Zeus's first partner. When Métis was pregnant, an oracle from Gaia, or it could be said that it was Uranus who told her, said that their first child would be as intelligent and powerful as him in the future. The next boy would repeat the experience of his father, Cronus, and grandfather, Uranus, overthrowing his father and usurping the throne. Zeus was very concerned about this oracle. He used clever words to deceive Métis, and when she wasn't paying attention, he swallowed her into his stomach. In short, all of this was caused by Zeus' selfishness. He was afraid that Métis' child would surpass him, so he swallowed his wife, Métis, alive. He was the ultimate scum. If your cheap father appears in front of me, I will skin him alive. Dustless stared at Athena's eyes and said without hesitation. Dustless knew that he was a scum, but compared to Zeus' actions, he knew that he was inferior. Hearing the murderous intent in Dustless' words, Athena fell silent. It was obvious who was right and who was wrong, so there was no need to argue. The only thing that surprised Athena was that Dustless didn't seem to have the intention to destroy Métis. Chapter 1466. Athena stared blankly at Dustless, her purple-black eyes empty and gloomy. As a god-slayer, Dustless did not seem to be interested in the authority of some gods at all. A god-slayer like Marquis Warban would definitely fight to kill a god that did not obey him. If Mortis does not come to me, I will not do anything, Silver said with a lazy expression, but his tone was exceptionally firm. You can't be. Thinking of Dustless's strange personality, Athena's tone also became strange. She guessed, you can't be interested in Mortis, can you? Bah! Dustless spat out the tea that he had just drunk. Athena's words had stolen his attention. He stared at her in annoyance, feeling speechless and conflicted. Am I that wretched? Although the feeling of having two goddesses serve him would be ecstasy, both mentally and physically satisfying, Dustless knew that he was not that perverted. You think of me too wretched and perverted? Dustless smiled bitterly. So far, the only one who had sex with him was Erica. To his surprise, Athena said disapprovingly, you are a pervert. Hearing this, Dustless rolled his eyes and was too lazy to bother with Athena. Although this fellow was a god, she was very black-bellied. If she could capture him, he would definitely not mind. Sleep early. We are going back to Japan tomorrow. Too lazy to care about Athena, Dustless went to his room to sleep. Their vacation would end the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow, they would return to Japan for classes and work. 2 days later, Dustless and the others rushed to Canaan School side by side as usual. Erica, Liliana, Dustless, and Athena were all there. As for Guyoli, she had gone home last night. She had heard that Kanaji Winterhorse was looking for her. Although Dustless did not like Kanaji Winterhorse, he did not ask too much. After all, everyone had their own personal matters. Speaking of which, what kind of power did you get in Italy this time? Erica blinked and asked with an expectant smile on her face. Sorry, I didn't get anything. Dustless shrugged. His free and easy tone showed that he wasn't lying. Of course, there was no need for that. You didn't get it. Liliana and Erica looked at each other, both petrified for a few seconds. Your Majesty, did you not kill Perseus? This time, it was Liliana who asked. Her nervous look was rather cute and beautiful. He committed suicide. Wuchen squeezed out a helpless smile from the corner of his mouth, but he chose not to mention the reason. Avoiding the important and dwelling on the trivial. Hearing this, Athena secretly despised him. If Dustless were to say how he had destroyed Perseus, Erica and Liliana would probably join the enemy and sympathize with Perseus. In short, I didn't obtain that guy's authority, and even if I did, it would be useless to me, so I'll just let him be. The biggest highlight of Perseus was nothing more than the ability of the sun. He could recover from any injury, which was quite amazing. But as the body of the ten-tailed beast, would Dustless care about that ability? Of course not. As the ten-tailed beast, even if not a single cell was left after being destroyed, he could still create something out of nothing and continue to break out of the cocoon and be reborn. The degree of being amazing was even more than that of Perseus. Letting him live will pose a threat to the safety of the world, Liliana said worriedly. Indeed. Erica nodded in agreement. They were not like Dustless who liked to stay out of things. The two women valued the survival of the world very much, even more than their own lives. He has been killed. His opponent is someone else, Dustless said softly. He also had a headache about Erica and Liliana, who were so kind. If it's him, even if the world is destroyed, it has nothing to do with me. Really? Liliana and Erica asked excitedly. Their eyes were anxious as if they were saying that if you dare to lie to us, you can forget about having fun in the future. I'm not the only one who killed a god. Salvatore Anthony was there at that time. Maybe he was killed by him. And there are conflicts between disobedient gods. Dustless said angrily. I can testify that Perseus was indeed killed. Athena took the initiative to help Dustless. Perseus was killed by her mother. After that, Athena rushed to the battlefield to investigate. That's for the best. Both Liliana and Erica heaved a sigh of relief, as if they had been relieved of a heavy burden. The two girls talked and laughed, getting along quite well with each other. Really, do you have to care so much about the life and death of others? If you know that I destroyed a few worlds in the past, you'll definitely jump to another camp. Dustless secretly complained. He could not help but break out in cold sweat for himself. If Erica and Liliana knew that he destroyed the Naruto world, One Piece world, Shinigami world, and even the Demon High School world, they would know that he controlled the moon and almost destroyed the earth. All the dirty tricks were known to the two women. Dustless even suspected that Erica and Liliana always saw him as an enemy. After all, they had always been responsible for saving the world. And the role that Dustless played in the past was precisely the ultimate butcher who destroyed the world. By the way, have you found any traces of Mortis? Quietly approaching Athena, Dustless reminded her seriously, I don't need to say more about the relationship between the two of you. If you don't look for her, she will come to you. At this point, Dustless felt a headache coming on again. He didn't intend to kill Mortis, but if the other party came looking for him, such as Erica and Liliana, he couldn't possibly continue to do nothing. In the end, Dustless, who had no choice, could only wield the butcher's knife against Mortis. Chapter 1467. Dustless was depressed, he seemed to have fallen into a dilemma. Glancing at Athena, Dustless was now deeply suspicious of her moral integrity. She might deliberately go easy on him, and then merge with Mortis to find trouble with him. Dustless sometimes felt a headache for this girl who was not firm in her stance. But, thinking of what Athena said before, Dustless could not help but itch in his heart. If I can really get Mortis and Athena to serve me at the same time, Dustless was tempted, but he did not feel that his thoughts were dirty. As a man, he would have such thoughts. What are you laughing at? Staring at Dustless, Athena said coldly, if you have some unrealistic ideas, I advise you to stop before going too far. After saying that, Athena left Dustless with her back and quickened her pace. Unrealistic thoughts? Not necessarily, don't you know who I am? Dustless curled his lips, his confident face was full of conceit. There was nothing that he could not think of, there was absolutely nothing that he could not do. Brother Chin, if you don't hurry up, you will be late. Kusanagi Shizuka urged, and at the same time, she quickened her pace and hurried to the school. Hearing this, Dustless waved his hand and smiled. After living in Kusanagi Shizuka's house for so many days, Shizuka had changed the way she addressed him, and their relationship was quite close. Shizuka also treated Dustless as her own brother. As for the original Kusanagi Shizuka, she had almost forgotten about him. When it's time to be lazy, you should be lazy. Dustless smiled slightly, and then his body turned into a huge flash of light and rushed to Qingja College. Damn it, why is there nothing worth investigating? In the health room where Dustless usually worked, a girl with long black hair and a perfect face cursed. Her big eyes were lively, and her expression was very anxious. If we don't find something valuable, that guy will come back. The girl rummaged around, hoping to find something of value, but after nearly an hour of work, all she found were newspapers and other insignificant things. That bastard, don't bother me, the girl said bluntly as she buried her head to look for useful information. Hearing this, Dustless's mouth twitched violently. He tried to maintain a gentle tone and said, "Student, I'm the healthcare teacher here. You can call me Dustless." "You're a healthcare teacher, shut me up." The girl's body suddenly stiffened. She immediately turned her head mechanically. Wu Chen's expression was gloomy as he stared at her with an unkind gaze. Cough, cough, cough. The young girl hurriedly coughed twice and stopped what she was doing. She tidied up her messy clothes and said seriously, "Teacher Dustless, I'm a new student. My name is Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard." What a familiar name, Wu Chen secretly frowned. His clear eyes stared at the young girl and scanned her twice. Suddenly, he patted his forehead. "This little girl seems to be in cahoots with Winter Horse," Dustless suddenly realized and then asked with a smile, "Clear Autumn Courtyard student, why did you come to my healthcare room?" The whole health room was in a mess, as if there was a thief. It was too horrible to look at. There was no doubt that this was all thanks to the girl in front of him. Although he didn't know what this girl was here for, Wu Chen could be sure that it was Winter Horse Canning who instructed her. Hearing this, Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard's face turned red. She couldn't say that she was here to investigate him as a thief. "I'm having a headache today, so I wanted to find some medicine." Clear Autumn Courtyard randomly found an excuse, but her face turned even redder. It was obvious that she was lying. Headache? Hearing this, Wu Chen wished he could slap this little girl away. Looking at the messy medical room, this was obviously done by her. Even the hospital bed was kicked far away by her, and there were dark footprints on it. Damn, this was not something a little girl with a headache could do. Even if you want to lie, you have to make people happy. Take it. Dustless opened the drawer where he usually kept his documents and took out a bottle of medicine. He gave it to Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard and said softly, "You're going to have class soon. Take 2 to stop the pain. Come back after class." "Thank you, teacher." Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard took the medicine bottle. Seeing that Dustless's expression was natural and didn't have any suspicions, she was relieved. At the same time, she looked at Dustless suspiciously. How did this guy appear? Clear Autumn Courtyard was speechless. Dustless suddenly appeared behind her like a ghost. When he appeared, she didn't feel anything and was quite frightened. Ding ding ding. Dustless and Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard remained silent. The atmosphere was quite awkward. At this time, the bell rang. Clear Autumn Courtyard, who seemed to have found her savior, bowed and left. "I'll thank Dustless next time. I'll go to class first." "Go." Dustless smiled and nodded. Really, her acting is too bad. Even if she has a headache, she should at least look like she has a headache. In the quiet corridor, Dustless watched Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard run like she was flying. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Wanli Gu Yoli seemed to have gone home yesterday. Could it be that he went to find Clear Autumn Courtyard? I remember that the two of them have a good relationship. They're both Witch Yuan. Dustless thought about Hui Na's origin. The information he knew was only a few words. The two of them were not familiar with each other. They had only met once. They had never met before. After thinking about it, it could only be someone else who asked her to get close to Dustless. Chapter 1468. The identity of the God Slayer is really dazzling. No matter where I go, I will attract a lot of attention. The Clear Autumn Courtyard is probably aiming for this gilded status. Dustless smiled as he vaguely understood something. In the original work, Qingqiu Yuan came for the identity of the God Slayer. For Japan, which did not have the protection of the God Slayer and had the protection of the God of Disobedience, Dustless was the perfect shelter. He was weak, had no background, and was strong. Most importantly, he was perverted. Who did this? Dustless's assistant, Athena, was also confused by the tragedy in the health room. She asked, could it be a thief? Do we need to call the police? Call the police. Hearing this, Dustless thought about it carefully and felt that this word sounded weird coming from Athena's mouth. It was done by a naughty student. Just clean it up a little. Calling the police is unnecessary. Dustless shook his head, indicating that Athena did not need to make a fuss. Besides, he knew who the culprit was. Ding ding ding, the bell rang, signaling the end of class. In the blink of an eye, it was noon. The cold corridor was noisy, like countless flies buzzing around, giving people a headache. I really don't know why these guys are so talkative. Qingqiu Yuan sighed in front of the window. Her mood was already in a mess. Now that this group of strange students was noisy, Qingqiu Yuan was even more annoyed. Yuan, how's the progress? A pleasant, gentle, and slightly expectant voice rang out behind him. It's you, Yoli. Turning her head to glance at the girl in the school uniform, Grace's expression became even more gloomy as if she had eaten Coptis chinensis. She smiled bitterly and said, this morning, I secretly sneaked into the health room and planned to investigate what that guy was doing all day. However, Wuchen suddenly appeared like a ghost and I was caught red-handed. Clear Autumn Courtyard's Grace was still at a loss. Where did Wuchen come from? She thought about it all morning but still could not figure it out. Her head was still buzzing, and her thoughts were in a mess. You hacked into the infirmary. Wanli-gu Yoli covered her mouth and asked in surprise, how could you do such a thing? You only have yourself to blame for being caught spying on others' privacy. The point is, I was caught without seeing anything. Grace Courtyard was even more depressed. If she had gotten some useful information, it would have been fine if she had been caught, but the result was disappointing. She hadn't even gotten a single strand of hair before she was exposed. She really felt like she had suffered a loss. Especially Grace Courtyard, who was afraid of leaving a bad impression on Dustless. Invading other people's workplace for no reason, and turning other people's office upside down, no matter who it was, they would be furious. Actually, your plan was unnecessary. Although Dustless is a god slayer, he's not as scary as you think. He's easy to get along with. The only flaw is, Wanli-gu Yoli was silent. His face was flushed red as if he found it hard to speak. What flaw? Wanli-gu Yoli's eyes lit up as if he was grasping at a life-saving straw. He asked anxiously, you know that I need a suitable excuse to get close to Dustless. I heard from Winterhorse Ganji that guy hates being monitored, especially by people like us who intend to use him. Hearing this, Wanli-gu Yoli was rather embarrassed. He stuttered for a long time but could not say anything. Just say it. Grace Courtyard grabbed Wanli-gu Yoli's shoulder and shook it. He's very perverted. Wanli-gu Yoli could only say it helplessly. Looking at Grace Courtyard's anxious look, if he did not give her a suitable answer today, he would not be able to have any peace today. Are you sure? Grace Courtyard obviously thought of a good plan. She asked with a smile like a fox, and her eyes were narrowed into slits. Both her voice and expression were very cunning. You can't be thinking of a certain possibility, Wanli-gu Yoli asked carefully, you plan to seduce him. So smart, as expected of my close friend. Grace Courtyard did not feel uncomfortable when she heard this. Instead, she generously admitted it and gave Wanli-gu Yoli a thumbs up. That, you still don't. Wanli-gu Yoli felt as if his throat was blocked. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. The corner of his mouth was incomparably bitter. He felt as if he had shot himself in the foot. Dustless was just a fart. He already had Erika, Liliana, Athena, Wanligu Yoli, himself, and Shizuka Kusanagi. There was already not enough for everyone. Now that Grace Courtyard's Grace had joined, there was no place for her to eat. Yoli, youth, Grace Courtyard's white jade-like nose bridge slightly wrinkled when she saw the bitter expression on Wanligu Yoli's face. She faintly smelled a strong sour smell and immediately ridiculed, "Don't tell me you have fallen for him. Have you been successfully conquered by that guy?" "Of course not." Wanligu Yoli replied without thinking. "Is that so?" Grace Courtyard's ridiculing expression became even more intense. She looked at Wanligu Yoli, who was fidgeting and clutching the corner of his clothes with a nervous expression, and muttered to herself, "What kind of virtue does that guy have? Is his charm really that great? Yoli has actually fallen for him. Don't talk nonsense." Wanligu Yoli was not taken lightly. He angrily glared at Grace Courtyard's Grace, who had a wicked smile on her face. In fact, she also faintly wanted to know Dustless's true intentions. "Yoli, I heard you say that guy has gathered a lot of women around him. Most of the god slayers are harem queens. We must form a united front. You have to help me." Chapter 1469. Clear Autumn Courtyard. Huey's watery eyes were bright and full of expression. She was afraid that others could not see how serious she was. She stared at Wanligu Yoli without blinking. "Don't talk nonsense." Wanligu Yoli shook his head like a rattledrum. He decisively rejected Clear Autumn Courtyard Huey's unrealistic idea. He absolutely could not agree to this condition. Tsk tisk. Hearing this, the expression of the Clear Autumn Courtyard's patron was rather calm. She stared at the red-faced Wanligu Yoli with a smile that was not a smile. Her eyes, which were as calm as autumn water, were gentle but exceptionally deep and bright. "Hui na, you," taking a step back in fear, Wanligu Yoli secretly knew that things were not good. She had a feeling that her inner thoughts had been seen through. She was really afraid of this kind of wise eyes that contained thousands of different meanings. Beads of sweat fell like raindrops. Just as she was having a headache about how to deal with Clear Autumn Courtyard, Hui, her savior, who relieved her of a burden, appeared. This student, Clear Autumn Courtyard, Hui frowned. When she forced Wanligu Yoli into a corner, she did not expect that someone would be so insensible to disturb her plan. "Which blind thing is disturbing us?" She turned around angrily, but the handsome figure that entered her sight made Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard dumbstruck. The person's bright eyes were as deep and dark as ink. They were very clear, and one could even see the reflection in his eyes. His messy hair made people feel that it was messy. However, combined with the young man's energetic face and the faint smile at the corner of his mouth, he gave people a feeling that he was rough but delicate. He looked rather gentle and reliable. Teacher Dustless. Wanligu Yoli and Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui were both stunned. They were somewhat sluggish and absent-minded. Dustless's sudden visit had indeed caught the two of them unprepared. In particular, the two women's faces were red and their expressions were slightly nervous. They gave people the feeling that they had done something wrong and were afraid of being found out by others. Teacher Dustless, what's the matter? Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui stammered. Wanligu Yoli's temperament was gentle, so he could only brace himself. Of course. Dustless stared meaningfully at Qingqiu Yuan Hui Na. Soon after, he chuckled and said, "Miss Qingqiu Yuan, to tell you the truth, I have already called the police." "What did you say?" The corner of Grace Courtyard's mouth twitched. She raised her voice by several decibels, and it was very sharp and ear-piercing. She had thought that she could easily get away with it, but she didn't expect that this fellow would call the police. How could she let this go? Although she could raise her butcher's knife to the god of disobedience without hesitation, she couldn't kill a powerless civilian. I suspect that our clinic has been burglarized, Dustless said with a serious expression. In reality, he was just trying to scare this new student. Didn't I just say that the health center is in such a mess because I was looking for painkillers? Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard said with a serious expression. That's too much. Dustless shook his head and said with a smile, the table in our infirmary was broken by someone. How could a little girl like you have that kind of strength? This must be done by some shameless man. Pfft. Wanli Gu Yoli, who was at the side, couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. His smiling face was extremely cute. There was no doubt that the shameless burly man that Wu Qin was talking about was Wanli Gu Yoli. He was mocking her in a roundabout way. This bastard isn't cursing me on purpose, right? Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard suppressed her anger and squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. That was indeed done by me. I have practiced taekwondo for 2 years. Is that so? Dustless narrowed his eyes and looked very cunning. He laughed in his heart. Finally willing to take the initiative to confess. I have to force you to tell me everything. That's why you should hurry up and get the police to leave. As if she had encountered a terrifying demon, Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard said with a face full of disgust. Although she wasn't afraid of the police, in the end, she was just an ordinary human. But as a student, being interrogated by a police officer in broad daylight, how could she face others in the future? Thinking about it, Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard's face was full of disgust. Staring at Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard's pure white delicate hands, Dustless's eyes lit up as he said with a smile, there's no hurry to find one. Before that, I still have a question. Could it be that this guy has a hand fetish? Catching the light in Dustless's eyes, Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard immediately trembled and couldn't help but hide behind Wanli Gu Yoli. Looking at Dustless, her eyes were full of uneasiness and her heart was full of fear. Student Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard should often practice swordsmanship, right? Dustless withdrew his gaze and asked softly. How do you know? Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard was stunned for a moment and asked in confusion. She was good with the sword and her swordsmanship was quite high. But what puzzled her was that she had never displayed her swordsmanship in this school. It's as simple as that. Hearing this, Dustless said indifferently, the inside of your right hand's 5 fingers have calluses. This is the best evidence that you practice swordsmanship. Moreover, you are so close to Wanli Gu. If I'm not wrong, it should be Gansu Dongma who sent you to get close to me, right? This guy is really careful. She looked at Dustless with a slightly sluggish expression. Seeing that her disguise was not exposed, Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard no longer hid it. You guessed all right. I am indeed a swordsman and have a good relationship with Yoli. However, my disguise should be flawless. Besides talking to Yoli just now, I haven't been in contact with him at all. How did you find out? Flawless. There is nothing perfect in this world. The so-called flawless is just your pure self-righteousness. Dustless calmly replied, turning a deaf ear to Hui Na's question. He couldn't say that he was a transmigrator and had the ability to predict the future. Chapter 1470. Grace Courtyard stared at Dustless in a daze. She didn't know why, but although she felt that her plan wasn't bad, when she thought about it, it was indeed a bit laughable. Phew, since she had been exposed by Dustless, Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard no longer concealed her identity. She decisively introduced herself and said, "My name is Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard. I am the only daughter of one of the 4 great families, the Clear Autumn Courtyard." She's also the number one, Tachi no Yukari, in this generation, and her specialty is spirit subjugation. I understand. Dustless nodded slightly. His bright eyes seemed to see through everything. In fact, he didn't understand a single word. However, he only needed to know her surname and first name. Everything else was trivial. What's the matter? Dustless asked. Compared to these trivial matters, he was more concerned about the purpose of Clear Autumn Courtyard Sui Na. Since you are a witch and come from the same force as Wanli Gu, then there is only one possibility for you to approach me. Back then, Wanli Gu Yoli approached Dustless for the same reason as Qingqiu Yuan Hui. I can accept your loyalty, Wu Qin said bluntly. Anyway, Qingqiu Brothel's purpose was so simple and pure. He had gained a pretty girl to fight for him, so why not? But I have a condition. Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui Na said seriously. Dustless paused when he heard this. He looked at Bright Autumn Courtyard's stern little face in disbelief. He felt rather conflicted and could not help but complain in his heart, you are my subordinate, but you actually have conditions for me, the king. Has the logic of the world been reversed? There's no need to say anything else. I'll reject all of your conditions. Dustless couldn't even be bothered to listen. He rejected everything in a single breath. He already knew what Bright Autumn Courtyard Hui was going to say. Akihabara Kato was stunned. Anger flashed in her eyes. Dustless really didn't give her any face. Whether he agreed or not, at least wait for her to say it first. You just want me to send Liliana and Erica home, don't you? Dustless's tone turned cold. Grace of the Autumn Brothel did not seem to understand the order of first come, first served. This is Japan, and they are foreigners, Kei-na said solemnly. Does this have anything to do with me? Dustless was puzzled. Of course it's related, Hui-na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard said seriously, Erica and Liliana have crossed the line. The problem is very serious. You are now in Japan, so it is Japan's. I'm sorry. First of all, I became a god slayer in Italy. Secondly, I first appeared in this world at Mount Lu in China. Dustless calmly said. Mount Lu was actually the place where Luo Hao lived in seclusion. Saying that he was the king of Japan was complete nonsense. The two had nothing to do with each other. Then you are also, Grace of the Autumn Brothel was dumbfounded. She wanted to refute Dustless's point of view, but she could not find a suitable reason. Please don't use a broken island to decide where I belong. If you have to ask me where I am the king, I can tell you clearly that I am the king of the world, Dustless said in a very serious tone. Broken island. You mean, our Japan is a broken island? Grace of the Autumn Brothel's mouth twitched violently. Her small face was red. She was very angry at Dustless's words. Her beautiful eyes were spitting fire as she glared at Dustless. She wanted to slap this bastard to death. Although Japan was indeed an island that was extremely short of all kinds of resources and had a small land plate, it was not a broken island. Especially after a series of reforms in the past, Japan had risen from the original backward island country to one of the top existences on this planet. Please watch your tone, Grace of the Autumn Brothel said with dissatisfaction. However, Dustless's face was still full of frivolity. He half-heartedly looked at the scenery outside the window. Clearly, he did not listen to Grace of the Autumn Brothel's words. You two, arguing about this kind of issue is really boring. Why don't you go out and relax? Wanli Gu Yoli saw that Dustless and Grace of the Autumn Brothel were in a deadlock. He had no choice but to stand up and resolve the situation. I remember now. Grace of the Autumn Brothel's mind suddenly flashed with a light. Grace of the Autumn Brothel's footsteps suddenly stopped. The fire in her gem-like eyes burned even brighter. She angrily glared at Dustless and asked, Since you know my identity, why did you call the police? This was intentional. You finally remembered. Dustless smiled but did not say anything. Soon after, he shook his head. This reaction was a bit too slow. Grace of the Autumn Brothel's pretty face showed signs of turning green. She still remembered that Dustless had said before that it was definitely some shameless burly man who had ambushed her infirmary. Since Dustless knew that she was the thief who had ambushed the infirmary and still said that, wasn't this the same as secretly cursing her? You're so despicable. Grace of the Autumn Brothel, who had come back to her senses, was fuming. Her pretty face was full of depression. It's your reaction that's too slow. You want to protect me by yourself like this. Maybe your king has been killed and you're still chatting with someone else. Dustless's words were full of thorns. Grace of the Autumn Brothel was speechless. Grace of the Autumn Brothel opened her mouth and found that she was speechless. In short, I can accept your loyalty, but I can't let Erica and Liliana pack up and leave. You should understand the principle of choosing the lesser of two evils. If I had to choose, the person I would abandon would definitely be you. After leaving behind his thoughts, Dustless turned around and left. I knew this would be the result. Looking at Dustless's back, Wanli-gu Yoli bitterly smiled and sighed. He was faintly dissatisfied with Grace of the Autumn Brothel. This condition was clearly a tyrannical treaty. No one would be able to accept it, not to mention that Dustless was extremely powerful. Knights were just superfluous to him. In fact, Dustless's true thoughts were just as Wanli-gu Yoli had guessed. If he could take it, he would take it. If he couldn't, then so be it. After all, he wouldn't lose anything. Chapter 1471. Wanli-gu Yoli and Chincho Courtyard Megumi both looked at Dustless's back silently for a while. Then, Chincho Courtyard Megumi suddenly stomped her feet in annoyance. Yoli, you were right. Chincho Courtyard Megumi wrinkled her nose and said. Hearing this, Wanli-gu Yoli was stunned. His face was full of confusion as he asked, what is true? Chincho Courtyard Megumi rolled her eyes at Wanli-gu Yoli and reminded him, can't you see it? This guy is really lecherous. Seducing him before was the right choice. Towards the end, Clear Autumn Courtyard's garden master smiled with delight. Where did you see it from? Widening his watery eyes, Wanli-gu Yoli was even more puzzled. He frowned and recalled the trivial things that happened just now. Dustless did not do anything out of line. You have to lose two beauties to get me. Of course, you can't do this kind of loss-making business. Chincho Courtyard Megumi said her strange point of view. Hearing this, Wanli-gu Yoli did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect this reason to be so funny. It was completely unreasonable. In short, Dustless is the king of our Japan. We can't let others touch him. Erica and Liliana are not locals. They must step aside. Chincho Courtyard Megumi left with a trace of hostility in her eyes, as if she had made some kind of decision. Ding ding ding, at dusk, the bell for the end of class finally rang. The people of Qingja Academy all went home one after another. Dustless and Athena also went back together. About 10 minutes later, there were only a few people left in Qingja Academy. Most of these people were left to clean. Erica, hurry up. Liliana complained with dissatisfaction. Looking up, Erica was staring at the distant scenery with a longing face. Her dazed eyes were a little absent-minded, and her expression was slightly frivolous and gentle. It was late autumn, and the golden leaves were dancing in the sky. The scenery was pleasant. This kind of thing can be left to you alone. Waving her hand, Erica did not mind and pushed the responsibility to Liliana. Liliana could be said to be an all-round genius. She was good at cooking and had a unique set of housework. She had good control over all aspects of her skills. Boom, boom, boom. A strong wave suddenly swept over, and the beautiful scenery outside the window changed drastically. An inexplicable sandstorm attacked, filling the entire sky in the blink of an eye. What's going on? Was God not giving him any face at all? Isn't it just being lazy and enjoying the summer scenery for a while? Is there a need to be so exaggerated? Erica, who was lost for words, complained, but her face was full of weariness, and her lazy eyes regained their solemnity. His gaze swept around, and from time to time, a cold light flashed across the corner of his eyes. Such abnormal weather defied the laws of physics, and he instinctively thought that it was a scene caused by the appearance of some disobedient god. Damn it, which bastard did it? Liliana's eyes were spitting fire. She had finally cleaned the classroom after much difficulty. Now that the sandstorm blew, it was a tragedy. The classroom was covered in a thick layer of sand and dust. She was caught off guard and ate a mouthful of sand. Clang! 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 The sound of steel rang out. Looking over, Liliana's sword had already been unsheathed. With such abnormal weather, she also guessed that the disobedient god had appeared. Oh! The two of you look really scary when you're fully armed. A frivolous and mocking voice rang out. A black shadow was approaching at an incredible speed. It was so fast that it was like a chilly wind, coming and going without a trace. So fast. Liliana and Erica exclaimed in shock at the same time. Even with their strength, they could only capture the fleeting shadows. They couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. Bang, bang, bang. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of glass shattering rang out. The loud noise brought the dazed Erica and Liliana back to their senses. They stared at the black-haired girl who had suddenly appeared in the classroom, full of vigilance. You did this? Liliana asked with a frown, a hint of hostility in her tone. Although she was quite wary of the girl in front of her, she still had her dignity. Besides, being wary didn't mean that she didn't even have the heart to resist. That's my greeting gift. Nice to meet you. My name is Akihara Kaina. The girl replied with a chuckle. Looking at the slightly disheveled Erica and Liliana, there was a hint of smugness in her tone. She didn't hide the smile at all. How uncultured. Erica sneered. She shouldn't be the disobedient god. She seems to be a witch from our country. Is this how you greet your guests for the first time? That's right. Although Liliana and Erica didn't usually deal with each other, the two decisively abandoned their previous grudges and jumped into the same trench in the face of a great enemy. Are you saying that I'm uncultured? Hearing this, Akihara Kaina sneered and mocked without backing down. Have you forgotten that this is Japan? How dare you seduce our king? How despicable, foreigner. This girl's mouth is really asking for a beating. Liliana and Erica looked at each other, the corners of their eyes twitching at the same time. Being called a foreigner was even more unbearable than slapping them. These little girls really give me a headache. At some point, Dustless was already sitting on the roof. He heard the noise of the three girls clearly. It was obvious that Akihara Kaina was deliberately looking for trouble, especially when she made such a big fuss. Her arrogant declaration was even more provocative. To put it bluntly, Akihara Kaina was here to fight. Her method was quite simple and direct. Whoever lost would scram. Chapter 1472. The conflict between the three women was like dry wood meeting a raging fire. There was no need for anyone to ignite the fire. It would burn anyone who meddled. I think it's best for me to remain silent. After pondering for a while, Dustless chose not to help either side. In this kind of situation, the one who would be taken advantage of in the end would be the man. He would only intervene when the situation was out of control. Where did this wild girl come from? Liliana's tone was also unfriendly. Of course, this was secondary. She also caught a strong hint of something else from Grace Courtyard's words. This B** starred shook her head. She wanted to monopolize Dustless. How preposterous. Liliana bared her teeth and cursed Grace Courtyard in her heart. This B** starred was too shameless. In the end, she just wanted to monopolize the power and kick them away. She was even more despicable than Erica. Clang clang clang, Erica, who knew that there was no way to resolve the grudge between them, also drew her sword and smiled. In that case, it seems that there is nothing to negotiate. Why don't the loser leave? That's what I want. That's what I want. Liliana and Grace Courtyard agreed. The three women's fighting spirit surged and they released a powerful aura, causing their hair to dance in the wind. You still have time to watch the show. They're going to fight because of you. A slightly suspicious voice came from behind. It was quite pleasant to the ear. However, Dustless's expression remained the same. There was no change in his emotions. Without turning his head, Dustless knew who it was. Athena, this doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. Or, suddenly turning his head, Dustless stroked his chin and asked teasingly, don't tell me that you're also here for me like them. Of course. Athena's face was bright red. She then approached Dustless rather shyly. Something's not right. Seeing this, Dustless was dumbfounded. He stared blankly at Athena who was gradually approaching him. According to his thoughts, after hearing what he said just now, Athena would definitely ridicule him ruthlessly and kick him if she could. Aren't you? Woo-woo. Before he could finish his sentence, Dustless was shocked to find that his lips were blocked. The touch was soft and comfortable, but Dustless couldn't feel happy. He felt like he was being targeted by a demon. His eyes widened as he looked at Athena. She was still holding on to Dustless's mouth, and there was a strange smile on her face. She looked like a venomous snake. Swish! Swish! Taking advantage of Dustless's paralysis, a sharp cold light came straight at him. Poochie! Dustless, who was caught off guard, did not have time to dodge. The cold light slashed at his throat, killing Dustless in an instant. Who are you? Dustless asked with a frown. He had just realized that something was wrong and was about to push Athena away, but it was already too late. He was instantly killed by the Grim Reaper's scythe. Me? I am your Athena. The Athena smiled mysteriously. You are. I know, so it's you. Dustless stared at the girl for a while before he replied, you should be Athena's mother, Métis. In order to get close to me, you actually dressed exactly like Athena. You really put in a lot of effort. You can't go wrong with being careful, Métis replied calmly. Her voice was cold and dark. Then, she stared at Dustless, who was still calm despite being cut in half. But your life force is really strong. If you weren't a god slayer, I would have taken you as my own. Shouldn't he die on the spot after being cut in half? Why is this guy completely fine? My life force is not just strong. As the ten-tailed beast, I am immortal. Dustless smiled proudly, not at all worried that his body would be cut in half. Immortal? What a bunch of lies. Métis curled her lips, her face full of disdain. Then, she was too lazy to talk nonsense. Where did you hide Athena? That guy actually gave up the dignity of a god and worked with a god slayer like you. She has fallen. Fallen. I feel that Athena has evolved. Dustless smiled and quibbled. Can this damn guy die or not? Seeing that Wu Chen's head was separated from his body, but he was talking cheerfully and wittily as if nothing had happened, Mortis couldn't help but twitch. This annoying fly still chose to say things that she didn't like. Sorry, you didn't hit the real me. How could you die? There was a ripple in the void, and the cold voice was filled with pure sympathy and pity. Métis was indeed quite tragic. She had always been considerate of Zeus, but in the end, her ending was extremely tragic. Zeus was afraid that the child in Métis' belly would surpass him, so he took advantage of Métis' carelessness to devour her. You are no match for me. If you leave now, I can let you go. Dustless, who was cut in half at the waist, said softly. You are already cut in half, and you are still talking nonsense. Métis asked angrily. Métis licked his dry cherry lips and was just about to ridicule Dustless when he suddenly noticed that the world in his eyes had inexplicably undergone a change. And Dustless' corpse no longer existed. What was extremely comical was that it had turned into two pieces of wood. What's going on? Métis, whose mouth was twitching, asked with a dark expression. You were just hit by my illusion. The scene of me being killed just now was just an illusion. Light flickered and Dustless revived perfectly. He was clean and there was nothing wrong with him. The surroundings were the same as before and there were no changes. Chapter 1473. Métis' eyes widened as she stared at Dustless. After a while, she snapped out of her daze and clenched her fists tightly. She was especially annoyed by the way Dustless looked at her with pity. It was as if she had swallowed a fly. I'm not a beggar, I'm a god. Who needs your pity, you stinky man? You're not convinced. Looking at the angry Métis, Dustless said, Your acting is very good. I almost thought you were Athena. No. Maybe if you didn't act rashly just now, I would have really thought you were Athena. Dustless looked at Métis deeply and said meaningfully. Oh. Where did I go wrong? Métis' anger subsided. She blinked and asked curiously, Actually, I also thought that my acting was perfect. After all, Athena and I are one, so I'm very familiar with her every move. No, you're not familiar with her. Dustless raised his thumb and shook it. His expression did not change as he said, If you didn't take the initiative to kiss me, I would have really thought you were Athena. Is that the reason? Métis frowned. She felt as if she had shot herself in the foot. She originally hoped that by sneaking an attack on Dustless, she could make this guy careless and let his guard down. Then, she would take the opportunity to kill him. She did not expect that the reason would be her own body. My ability is a little special. I can sense a person's malice and kindness. When Athena kissed me before, although she was unwilling, at least she did not have the intention to kill me. But you made me feel a chill down my spine, Dustless said frankly. He felt as if he was being stared at by a venomous snake just now, and all his hair stood on end. Is that so? So that's the reason. Even the wisest person would make a mistake, Métis said in frustration. Of course, after a second of silence, she regained her sinister smile. Then. I'll kill you head on. Black mist erupted from Métis's body as he charged forward with a sharp black scythe in his hand. Around her, there were several pitch-black pythons. They looked ferocious and terrifying. They were several hundred meters long, and their bloody mouths were wide open, revealing their dense fangs. Let alone fighting, just looking at them was enough to make one tremble in fear. Untactful woman. A ripple suddenly appeared in the calm sky, and then countless small vortexes appeared. Kai Bao Wang. Dustless let out a soft cry, and all kinds of strange divine weapons entered his vision. There were so many of them that even Mortis's crazy eyes were filled with shock. She smelled a threat. All of you, disappear. With a light wave of his arm, the various divine weapons that were suspended in the air all poured down, piercing toward the thick pythons around Mortis. Poochie! Poochie! Poochie. Although Mortis summoned dozens of pythons, Dustless used Kai Bao Wang to summon even more divine weapons. In the blink of an eye, thousands of divine weapons were shot out, and the ferocious pythons were instantly wiped out, leaving only Mortis alone. So fast. Mortis's face twitched, and she felt that the situation was very wrong. She came with the mentality of crushing silver, but the situation now seemed to be the complete opposite. Looking at the countless divine weapons pointing at her, Mortis realized that she was the one who was at a disadvantage. Their roles had been reversed, and she had turned from a predator to Dustless's prey. Swish swish swish. Mortis, whose heart was filled with hatred, did not give up. Instead, she quickly attacked. Not only did Dustless's strength not make her stop, but it also stimulated her ferocious nature. It's good to teach you a lesson. With a wave of his hand, the divine weapons that filled the sky all fell, and the only target was Mortis. Damn it, why is there such a perverted authority? There are so many of them. Mortis had an unlucky expression and was very depressed. She had only wanted to test this god slayer, but who would have thought that this lecherous-looking kid was gold covered by sand? It was strange and unreliable. Swish swish swish. All kinds of fatal attacks came at full speed, and Mortis resisted very tenaciously. She waved her scythe and tried her best to block all the weapons that came at her. Clang clang clang. The blades kept slashing, but they could not hurt Mortis at all. Her strength and observation skills were not bad, and she could dodge the attacks in time every time. Heaven Lock. Seeing the opportunity, Dustless decisively used his killer move. The golden chain rushed out and went straight for Mortis. What a despicable guy. Although Mortis had been resisting all kinds of divine weapons, her attention was still focused on Dustless. When he attacked, she could clearly sense it. You call this despicable? Dustless rubbed his nose helplessly. If he wanted to kill Mortis, she would have been dead when she was bewitched by the illusion. She had allowed her to live until now out of compassion. Especially after being ambushed by Mortis for no reason, an abnormal desire had sprouted in her heart. It's not a bad idea to capture her and raise her. Dustless looked at Mortis and smiled evilly. He suddenly had this strange thought. One Mortis and Athena would not be enough to make him poor. Clang clang clang. The golden chain came straight at her. Mortis dodged sideways and chose to avoid the attack for the time being. Wu Chen's cunning smile made her shudder with fear and uneasiness all over her body. She looked at the heaven lock carefully, and the uneasiness in her heart grew. This is the natural enemy of gods. Seeing Mortis's depressed face, Dustless smiled evilly. If you are bound by the heaven lock, your life will be over. The higher your divinity, the tighter the heaven lock's binding will be. Chapter 1474. Hearing Dustless's words, Mortis sneered. God's genius. A weapon specialized in punishing gods. Such a thing had never been heard of since ancient times. Mortis had only done it because Dustless had made it up. Swish. 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 However, facing the heaven lock, Mortis took a detour. There was an inexplicable voice in her heart that reminded her not to be bound. The higher the divinity, the higher the binding rate. There is no such weapon in this world. Mortis tried her best to block the heaven lock and all kinds of divine weapons. Then you can give it a try. Wu Chen said expectantly. Mortis's mouth twitched. She said angrily, Do you think I am an idiot? Dustless's face turned cold. He stared at Mortis, whose face was distorted. The last gentleness in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by blood-red killing intent. If he didn't teach her a lesson, she wouldn't listen to him obediently. Boz. 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 More and more lights flashed in the sky. The other side seemed to be connected to the treasure vault where divine weapons were kept. All kinds of strange weapons kept popping out. Swish. 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 The void stopped, and the swaying sharpness all fell. Compared to before, the number of sharpness paled in comparison. Wave after wave, the number of sharpness increased by tens of times. Damn pervert. Mortis cursed in her heart. She raised her hands and legs, and several giant pythons with bloody mouths flew out. You still want to struggle? With a cold snort, Dustless showed disdain. He floated in the sky. Combined with the divine weapons that kept shooting out from the space behind him, he gave off an arrogant feeling. There were many weapons in the king's treasure that specialized in punishing gods, and the Heavenlock was just one of them. PFFF. 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 Although the thick black pythons were strong and mighty, blocking a wave of attacks from Mortis, they could only admit defeat in the face of such a large number of attacks. In the end, they were all killed mercilessly. The only one left was Mortis. Mortis. Where did she go? After eliminating all the pythons, Dustless discovered that Mortis, who was supposed to be behind the pythons, had disappeared into thin air. I've been tricked. She only used these snakes to attract my attention. I didn't expect her to run away. How disappointing. In my heart, she's a Saint Seiya who will never admit defeat. Dustless said in astonishment. There was a trace of shock in his words. In his heart, Mortis had always been the representative of the stubborn faction. Unless he died in battle, he would never run away. Let's stop here. As long as you are still interested in Athena, we will meet again one day. Dustless was extremely calm. Métis' target was only Athena. As long as she did not give up on her plan, there would be a day when she would come looking for him. There was no need to worry. It's about time you guys stopped. Dustless turned his gaze and fell on the three girls fighting in the classroom. He sighed slightly. He was also troubled by this kind of situation. Trivial matters between women were the most difficult to resolve. If he did not handle it well, he might offend one of them for no reason. After all, women were famous for being petty. Clang! 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 Sparks flew in the classroom. The three girls were in the midst of a fierce battle. Although Erika and Liliana were working together to deal with Akihihara Kaihihara, what surprised everyone was that the fierce Akihihara Kaihihara did not show any signs of defeat. What kind of freak is this guy? Even when Liliana and I are working together, we are still at a disadvantage. Erika was speechless. She glanced at Liliana. Although she did not say much, her face was full of shock. All of you, stop. Liliana, put down the sword in your hand. Erika, put down the table in your hand. Akihihara Kaihihara, put down the bench in your hand. A calm roar suddenly came. The three girls seemed to have stepped into a gravity field. Moving became dozens of times more difficult and even breathing became difficult. The three of them were shocked. This mysterious person who suddenly disturbed the situation was too terrifying. Just the aura he revealed made them feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. It was as if they had been abandoned by the whole world. Who are you? Which god of disobedience is it? The three girls shouted nervously at the same time. They tried to put some distance between them and the mysterious person. Who would have thought that their feet would fall uncontrollably just as they raised them? That supreme aura of a ruler made them not dare to act rashly. God of disobedience. I am not some god of disobedience. Akihihara Kaihihara is fine. After all, we have only met once. But Erika and Liliana, you two are so sad. After all, we live under the same roof every day, and you don't even remember my voice," said the black shadow in a gloomy tone. At the same time, he revealed his true identity, Dustless. Liliana and Erika were both stunned. They had been so focused on Akihihara Kaihihara that they did not notice Dustless's existence. So much so that they thought Dustless was the so-called god of disobedience. "And you," Dustless frowned when his gaze fell on Akihihara Kaihihara. He said in dissatisfaction, "I should have told you before that if you have any unrealistic ideas, you should give them up early." At the end of his words, the entire classroom, no, the entire teaching building, seemed to be in the middle of a turbulent sea. It swayed back and forth in great shock. Akihihara Kaihihara's face was instantly covered in cold sweat. Her gaze toward Dustless also gradually changed. However, what was not flattering was that it was not fear, but an indescribable excitement. Chapter 1475. Wu Chen's brows furrowed into a knot. He knew why Hui Na of the clear autumn courtyard approached him. "But no matter how outstanding I am, you don't have to look at me like that." Dustless expressed his disgust, cold sweat involuntarily dripping down his face. This look full of possessiveness was not a good sign. This guy wants to keep it all to himself. Looking at each other, Erika and Liliana could see the anger in each other's eyes. They were willing to sacrifice Dustless, but this excessive bastard wanted to take Dustless for himself. How hateful. You can go home now. This is a war between women, it has nothing to do with you." Erika's words were full of hostility. Everyone had a limit to their patience. "You're right." Liliana and Qingqiu Courtyard's Hui Na nodded at the same time. Hearing this, Dustless just rolled his eyes and said unceremoniously, "Right my ass." Dustless was almost 100% sure that as soon as he left, the girls would tear down the entire teaching building. No, they would forcibly tear down the entire Qingzhe school. "All of you stop," Dustless ordered again. This time, it was different from before. His tone was obviously more serious, sharing the burden, and containing a majestic aura that could not be disobeyed. What a strong strength. Clear autumn courtyard Huey's eyes shone brightly. Her unconventional intentions were even more obvious. "What's wrong with this guy? Why do you have to force me to make a move?" "No. She seems to be doing this on purpose. I remember that she once tested that kid from Kusanagi Protector." Dustless pondered. He had a whole new level of respect for Grace Courtyard. She was much more difficult to serve than the other girls. "Let's stop here. I don't want to cause more trouble. It's too difficult for you to challenge me with your strength." Rolling his eyes, Dustless said bluntly, "One arm, no, one finger is enough to deal with you." Pfft. Upon hearing that, Erika and Liliana couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Are you looking down on me?" Hui of the clear autumn courtyard stomped her foot angrily. Her tone had a hint of grievance. This fellow didn't give her any face at all. "Even if this is the truth, you should pay attention to the situation. Your Majesty, let me test how sharp your sword is." With a cold expression, Grace Autumn Courtyard attacked with a sharp longsword. Her speed was unimaginably fast, even faster than when she was fighting Erika and Liliana. Could it be that this guy was hiding his strength? Looking at each other, Erika and Liliana could see the shock in each other's eyes. This girl who kept calling them foreigners was too strong. As far as humans are concerned, this speed is already the limit. With ripples in his eyes, Dustless shook his head slightly. Perhaps it was as fast as lightning in the eyes of Erika and Liliana, but it was as slow as a turtle in Dustless' eyes. In the end, Grace of Autumn Courtyard was still a slightly stronger human. Her nature had not changed. "I'd like to see how you can stop me with one finger." Grace of the clear autumn courtyard stomped hard on the ground, and her speed increased a little in an instant. She held the sharp blade with both hands, and the simple long sword slashed toward Wu Chen's face. "Watch out!" Liliana and Erica cursed worriedly. They secretly cursed that bastard Hui of the clear autumn yard. What if he couldn't handle it? She might even cut off Dustless's head. However, what happened next proved that the two of them were overthinking things. Clang! 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 Grace Courtyard's broadsword was blocked. The ear-splitting noise stunned her. As if she had hit a rock with all her strength, Grace Courtyard's arm was numb. Looking over curiously, Hui Na of the clear autumn courtyard was instantly stunned. His eyes widened as he saw Wu Chen easily block his attack with a single finger. He really blocked it with one finger. Grace of the clear autumn courtyard was speechless. Looking at the delicate finger, she was furious. If this was an ordinary weapon, she could pretend nothing had happened and laugh it off. However, she was holding a divine weapon that could cut through iron like mud. Is his finger too hard, or is my sword too blunt? Grace Courtyard thought to herself. At the same time, she withdrew her sword. Dustless thought that she would stop, but who would have thought that the sword she withdrew would be like a venomous snake spitting out its tongue, revealing a sinister cold light once again. Taking advantage of Dustless's carelessness, she suddenly stabbed at him. You can't go back on your words after losing. Grace Courtyard chuckled, a hint of pride in her tone. It was as if she could already see Dustless's miserable defeat. This is the price for underestimating me. What a despicable woman. Liliana and Erica cursed. They did not expect Grace Courtyard to play this game. The two girls clenched their fists, but they could not stop her. The winner was king and the loser was in the wrong. It did not matter if she was despicable or not. The only thing worth paying attention to was the winner. This is boring. Glancing faintly at the cold light, Dustless did not even bother to move his hand this time. He directly revealed a strong temperament that he had experienced in several worlds. It has already reached the level of shock. Caw caw caw. All the desks and benches in the classroom turned into a large cloud of dust. Clang clang clang. Grace Courtyard's face changed greatly, and the sword that was stabbed at Dustless fell to the ground involuntarily. She just felt as if she was carrying an unprecedented mountain on her back. Her body was unable to move, and her strength was drained. Not to mention continuing to fight against Dustless, even breathing was dozens of times more difficult. Can you withstand Haushiku-haki? Although it's difficult, it's not bad. Chapter 1476. People who have experienced hundreds of battles and come into contact with Haushiku-haki, especially Dustless's Haushiku-haki, have already reached an incredible level of power. At that time, there was absolutely no one in the world who could surpass him in Haushiku-haki. Teruna Chingsho was barely able to stabilize her body. To be honest, Dustless was really surprised. After all, from the outside, she was just a simple little girl. Stop it. Teruna Chingsho, who couldn't bear it, was the first to admit defeat. Her face was sweating like rain, and her clothes were wet behind her back. Dustless could even see her exquisite body. Stop it. Erica and Liliana also said with embarrassed faces, although this supreme momentum was not directed at them. You've played enough of your boring tricks. The imposing manner of Mount Tai was completely restrained. Wu Chen's line of sight was also taken back. His mind was waning. Teruna Chingsho's series of actions were actually to test Dustless. That's right, it was a test. Kusanagi Protector Court was an example. After a series of sad tests by Teruna Chingsho, they barely passed in the end. However, when it was Dustless's turn, it was Teruna Chingsho's turn. It's not over yet. Chincho smiled mysteriously and pointed to Dustless's feet. What is that? Liliana and Erica screamed at the same time. They saw a large group of black waves under Dustless's feet, as if it was connected to another world, penetrating the cold and isolated atmosphere. No matter how much nonsense you make, you have to stop. If a child excessively wears down an adult's heart, the consequences will be very serious. Dustless's tone was a little colder. Giggle. Hearing this, Chincho just laughed sweetly and whispered, if someone wants to see you, I can't help it. As a king, you should be magnanimous. Magnanimous? There's no need to talk about magnanimity with a barbarian like you who doesn't know the rules. Liliana said angrily. She had no good impression of Chincho. That's reasonable. Erica also nodded slightly. She then looked at Dustless worriedly and said, hurry up and come out. This guy is very cunning. What if you get taken advantage of? Hearing this, Wuchen felt a burst of warmth in his heart. Although Erica's worry was superfluous, it was undeniable that she was sincere. You guys want to go too? Gazing at Erica and Liliana with a weird look, Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard said with a malicious smile, okay, I can fulfill your wish. The moment he said that, the same black hole as the one under Dustless's feet appeared next to Erica and Liliana's feet. With a strong gravitational force, it slowly swallowed Erica and Liliana who were struggling. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were gradually swallowed up. Since I have nothing better to do, I might as well go take a look at that so-called soul world. I also want to see what kind of divine being is inside. Dustless had already guessed the identity of the person who wanted to see him. Although it was a bit boring, it was also a good way to kill time. Swish swish swish. At the same time, a silent, sinister wind blew. The penetrating chill was like the descent of the death god, and one could vaguely hear the suppressed cries of ghosts and wolves. Silver, who had sensed the subtle changes, also recovered his composure. He stared at the indistinct shadow behind Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard. Dustless alerted loudly, watch out behind you. Sensing a cold, murderous aura, he warned loudly. Behind me. Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard was stunned. She subconsciously turned around, and a huge, bone-piercing cold light immediately rushed into her eyes. It was only a little away from killing Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard. However, it was also at this moment that a lucky star fell from the sky. All things heavens beckoning. A gravitational force enveloped Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard, and then Dustless pulled her over. Only then did Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard escape from the gates of hell by a fluke. Otherwise, she would have stepped into another world, the underworld. Plop. Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard, who had yet to recover from the shock, was clearly in a daze. She seemed to still be immersed in the terrifying experience just now. You're here again. Frowning, Dustless scrutinized the person who had ambushed him for a few seconds. It was actually Mortis, who had left and returned. Are you surprised? Mr. God Slayer. Looking down at Dustless, Mortis said with an I'm thinking for you expression. Traveling to other places, I even gave you a female companion for free. You should thank me for being so compassionate. Is that so? The god of disobedience is still so considerate. How rare. Dustless ignored Mortis's teasing and responded calmly. This time, it was Mortis's turn to be puzzled. She asked, aren't you afraid that I'll devour Athena? While you're away, it's a good opportunity for me to make my move. I don't actually have the initiative in this matter. It's a private matter between the two of you. If Athena is willing to let you devour her, I can't stop you even if I want to. If she doesn't want to be devoured, then, you can't do it either, Dustless explained calmly. Hearing this, Mortis's face was immediately filled with anger. She asked in a low voice, are you looking down on me? Do I need Athena's charity? Dustless shrugged. One sentence was enough to make Mortis choke. I'm just stating a fact. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Mortis could not help but be furious. Just as she was about to argue with Dustless, the time had come. He and Hui of Qingshou Courtyard had disappeared from Mortis's sight. You ran fast enough. I won't let you off in the end. Mortis said viciously. Although she said that, she was rather glad in her heart. If Dustless had continued to stay here and cause trouble, her plan would have definitely failed. Mortis would not have been able to deal with his godly strength and unbelievable ability. Chapter 1477. It's really a magical world. In this strange world, the fog was rolling, and the whole world was white, as if it was the beginning of the hazy period, surrounded by dense primitive forests. It's really hard for her to bring me to this world, Dustless said as he walked. When he first came to this world, Keiko Kyoto disappeared from the world and disappeared inexplicably. It was probably prepared by her, and she had long expected such a situation to happen. In this strange world, Keiko Kyoto was much more familiar with it than Dustless and others. Well, right at this time, in front of Dustless, a heavy fog suddenly attacked. An ancient wooden house suddenly appeared in the originally empty area that was supposed to be devoid of anything. In addition, the wooden house was surrounded by a transparent barrier. This old man really knows how to enjoy life. Everywhere he goes, he brings a house with him. Dustless muttered. As a transmigrator, he knew that the person in this room was a god of disobedience called Susanoo, who was also Keiko Kyoto's helper. But what is this barrier used for? Looking at the transparent barrier outside the door, Dustless was quite curious and surprised. In the original work, he did not remember Kusanagi Protector had such an encounter. Kusanagi Protector entered the wooden house very easily. Gulp. In a rather antique room, a black-haired uncle drank a mouthful of wine, showed an expression of wanting more, and then wiped the remaining wine stains on the corner of his mouth. Little boy, if you want to blame someone, blame that little girl Keiko. She asked me to test you. Pouring another glass of wine, Susanoo was about to drink it, but an untimely voice came from outside the door, and his alcohol addiction disappeared without a trace. Of course I know that she asked you to do such a boring thing, otherwise I would have torn down your nest. Otherwise, do you still think you can enjoy drinking? The door was gently pushed open, and there was a creaked sound, revealing the young man's elegant face, and his black eyes were shining like stars. Susanoo was stunned for a long time. How did you come in? What happened to the barrier I set up? Susanoo, who had just recovered from his shock, ran out of the door with a stunned look on his face. If Dustless wanted to come in, he would have to break through the enchantment barrier. Susanoo was confident in his own strength, and the enchantment barrier he set up was strong enough. Originally, he expected Dustless to take a lot of effort to break in, but who would have thought that this guy was like a ghost without a physical body, floating directly in. There was no movement at all. How is this possible? Walking out of the door, Susanoo stared dumbfoundedly at the enchantment barrier. Susanoo's eyes widened as he saw that the enchantment barrier was intact, but inexplicably there was a circular hole in it. Without a doubt, it was Dustless's doing. How did you do it? Susanoo asked in disbelief. How did you get in? It's simple, there's nothing to be shocked about. He unceremoniously picked up Susanoo's wine pot and gently took a sip. The spicy taste immediately spread throughout his internal organs. Dustless secretly sighed at the good wine. My dojutsu, Kamui, can easily tear this kind of enchantment barrier, so it's normal that you can't detect it. Dustless explained slowly. The method is very simple, use Kamui to focus on a certain point, and then forcibly use dojutsu to tear it apart, just like how Kakashi in Naruto was able to tear apart Uchiha Madara's truth-seeking bowl. The enchantment barrier is completely superfluous for Kamui. Okay, long story short. Putting down the jug of wine, Dustless calmed his thoughts and said coldly, "Let's stop the children's game. The entrance exam is a child's game. It's okay to play it occasionally, but don't do it again." Hearing this, the corners of Susanu's mouth twitched. Dustless's tone made him quite unhappy. It was like the relationship between a superior and a subordinate. He was also a kami, but it felt more like he was Dustless's little brother. "I don't care about that, I'm just following Kaina's arrangement." Shrugging his shoulders, Susanu put on an expression of a dead pig not afraid of boiling water. "The god of disobedience is really a guy who doesn't understand etiquette. Don't you think you should thank me?" Dustless glanced at Susanoo lightly and said, "Thank you." Hearing this, the corners of Susanoo's mouth twitched violently, and he cursed in his heart, "You brat, you broke into my territory and accused me indiscriminately, but now you want me to thank you. How ridiculous. What do I have to thank you for?" Susanoo asked in a strange tone. "You are still alive." Dustless gave a deceptive answer. Hearing this, Susanoo was stunned for a long time, and then like a provoked lion, his whole body trembled. He finally understood what Dustless meant. "You mean, I should thank you for being alive and talking to you?" Susanoo asked pointedly. "In other words, you let me live because of Kaina's face. Otherwise, I would have died a long time ago. This old man understood what you meant correctly, right?" Hearing this, Dustless glanced at Susanoo in surprise, and then immediately nodded and said softly, "That's right, otherwise your head would have been cut off a long time ago." Susanoo almost spat out the wine he just drank. "This guy's words are too infuriating. I am a real kami. You think you are so great just because you are a god slayer? Do you have to look down on me like this? To be honest, I also want to see how strong the legendary god slayer is," Susanoo said in a deep voice. The surface of his body emitted a large purple-black light, and the quiet house suddenly shook with a caw-caw-caw sound. There were obvious cracks all around. Chapter 1478. 10 billion divine beasts danced in Susanoo's mind. Dustless's arrogance made him lose face. "No matter what, I'm still a god, and you're just a human. Although you're a god slayer, you should at least take care of an old man. Ignorant brat." Susanoo complained in his mind, but he put on a helpless expression. He released his powerful aura, but Dustless was not affected at all. He leisurely drank his wine and quietly mocked his powerlessness. "Just say what you want to say." Dustless found it rather funny to see this boorish middle-aged man so depressed. He said playfully, "You're a god, but I'm a god slayer. If you don't give me a reasonable explanation, you're going to be in trouble today. Forget it." Despite his displeasure, Susanoo chose to swallow his anger. There was no need to fight Dustless over such a small matter. In particular, Dustless had always crushed his opponents with decisive strength. He might even fail miserably this time. "I called you here because it's about me Tease." On the other side, Kaona, Erika, and Liliana of the Clear Autumn Courtyard were engaged in another battle. In this unfamiliar world, even if Liliana and Erika worked together to deal with Kaona of the Clear Autumn Courtyard, they had no advantage. In fact, they were at an absolute disadvantage. Swish! 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 The three figures clashed, releasing powerful energy ripples. Wave after wave of destructive shockwaves spread out from the center of the battle, and everything that came into contact with it was reduced to ashes. Boom! 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 Two of the figures were sent flying, their bodies smashing into the mountain, creating bottomless pits. Upon closer inspection, they were Liliana and Erika. "Our swordsmanship is on par, but that guy's sword should be some kind of divine artifact, Erica said unwillingly, feeling that Kaona of the Clear Autumn Courtyard had an unfair advantage. Throw your sword away if you have the guts. She wanted to say this, but she found it hard to say it out loud. Everyone knew that the winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. As for the process, no one cared. Attack her from the front and back. Liliana was sweating profusely, and so was Erica. Their clothes were soaked in sweat. Their clothes were almost transparent, but no one appreciated their graceful cleavage. In this world, the two of them were at a great disadvantage. Full of fighting spirit. Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard praised, but her tone was colder. She raised her black longsword up high with a serious expression. An indescribable aura erupted from her body as she chanted an ancient and cryptic incantation. Oh, heavenly sword of gathering clouds, with my body as a sacrifice, I am willing to appease the raging spirits. After she finished chanting the incantation, Kaina's body began to change. Her entire body turned black, and her sword-wielding right arm was wrapped in a spiraling substance. That was not the most important thing. What kind of monster is this bastard? She's more like a god-slayer than a human. Erica and Liliana were both dumbfounded. They were already at a disadvantage in this world. Now that Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Yard had unleashed her true form, the situation was perilous. The two of them had no chance of winning. I see. That's all you want to say. After a few minutes, Dustless endured his boredom and carefully listened to Susanu's explanation. He had a clearer understanding of Mortis's purpose. Yes, that crazy woman is very dangerous. Compared to the relaxed Dustless, Susanu was much more serious. He took a sip of wine and said, "She intends to devour the sky of the world you live in to take revenge on the sky god Zeus. I know about such trivial matters. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Dustless stretched and stood up to move his stiff body with a bored expression. Seeing Dustless's nonchalant expression, Susanu's mouth twitched violently. He cursed, "You don't know how to respect people at all. I've been talking for a long time, but you're about to fall asleep. How dare you?" Susanu was furious. Looking at Dustless's face, he felt extremely unlucky. Goodbye. Realizing that time was gradually passing, Dustless's temper was finally worn out. If he guessed correctly, Keiko Takumi must have gone to find trouble with Liliana and Erica. In this world, it seems that as long as I think of someone's appearance in my mind, I can go to their side. After saying that, Dustless closed his eyes and recalled Liliana and Erica's appearance in his mind. Then, he felt a powerful force pulling him away. Boom! 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 The deafening sounds of explosions rang out incessantly. Swords and sabers danced in the air, and sparks flew in all directions. The huge impact made people feel as if they were brushing past their bodies, making them feel as if they had been slapped several times. Dustless opened his eyes and saw Erica and Liliana, who had been suppressed to the point of being in a sorry state. Ah! They're being suppressed so badly. Dustless glanced at Erica and Liliana, who were sweating profusely. Due to their wet clothes, he saw some places that he shouldn't see. Ah! An inhuman roar came from Keiko Takumi's mouth. Then, a huge slash shot out. Liliana and Erica were in danger. She went a little overboard. Dustless frowned. This powerful slash left a mess wherever it went. Its momentum and sharpness were extremely ferocious. It had already exceeded the limits of what the two women could endure. Dustless could even guarantee that Erica and Liliana would be crippled even if they didn't die. In a flash, he stood in front of Erica and Liliana like a wall. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.